Chapter 1. Perfect Experiment. In the Land of Grass. The moon shone brightly in the night. Moonlight spilled over, illuminating the ground and revealing a pitch-black cave entrance. Muffled explosions echoed from within the cave. Crack! The mountainside suddenly split open. Countless rocks flew about as the entire mountain seemed ready to collapse. A long-haired man flew out from among the rubble, his gaze fixed on the crumbling mountainside, hands rapidly forming ninja hand signs. Summoning Jutsu. The smoke of the summoning Jutsu spread. A brown giant snake was summoned. Before the giant snake could react, a nimble young man suddenly leaped out from the mountainside, his fist smashing into the snake's head. The punch was strong and forceful. The giant snake had just been summoned and in a few seconds was struck by the sudden blow to its head, receiving a fatal injury, turning back into smoke. However, in that short time, it was enough for the summoner to land in a safe place. The long-haired man stood on the ground, utterly indifferent to the fate of the summoned creature, only looking up at the faintly glowing figure, licking his lips with his tongue. The greatest creation has been born. His eyes full of greed, as if peering through the smoke, looking at the world's most precious treasure. Such vast amounts of chakra. This is the experimental subject that can perfectly integrate with Hashirama cells. The smoke slowly dissipated. A black-haired, bare-chested young man landed on the ground. This young man was very handsome. Perhaps most people would feel an instant affection upon seeing him, but the aura emanating from the boy was not to be ignored. Such immense chakra! Few in the ninja world could match this. The young man looked at the long-haired man in front of him, curiously tilting his head, his eyes as clear and innocent as a newborn's. "Who are you?" The young man's voice sounded somewhat naive. The long-haired man was sinisterly handsome, with eyes like the vertical pupils of a snake, and his body exuded a cold, serpentine aura. In the entire ninja world, only one person could exude this, and that is Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha. Orochimaru, upon hearing the young man's question, frowned, his voice hoarse. It seems the experiment is still somewhat problematic. Have there been problems with brain cells? The young man tilted his head, and the intimidating aura around him slowly dissipated. Akahara Kagura. Orochimaru called out the young man's name. However, this name seemed to suddenly alert the young man. The ground beneath the boy's feet cracked open abruptly. Using the acceleration of stepping on the ground, he extended his hand towards Orochimaru's head. A wooden spike emerged from the palm of the young man. The attack was so sudden. In a split second, the wooden spike was about to pierce through Orochimaru's head. Orochimaru hastily raised his fingers, and a series of black curse marks quickly appeared all over the young man's body, immobilizing him completely. The binding curse mark. By embedding the curse marks in the target's body beforehand, they are activated at crucial moments to immobilize the target with binding curse jutsu. To avoid potential accidents, Orochimaru had prepared the binding curse marks in the young man's body in advance, but still felt the recent incident was perilously close. Now, having controlled the young man's movements, Orochimaru's mood finally began to calm down, and a sinister smile reappeared on his face. It seems it still works. Boom! The next moment, the young man's chakra burst forth again. Just the eruption of chakra alone created a terrifyingly oppressive sensation. The curse marks, under the impact of powerful chakra, began to slowly dissolve, and the binding curse marks on the young man were gradually breaking apart. Orochimaru quickly retreated. The young man, relying on the burst of chakra, released the curse marks on himself, glanced at the distance between him and Orochimaru, and the confusion in his eyes began to slowly fade. Lord Orochimaru. The boy seemed to have regained consciousness, hanging an uneasy and apologetic expression. "I apologize, Lord Orochimaru. I just lost control of my body and couldn't control my actions. Fortunately, you used the curse seal to control my body. This is normal. Orochimaru felt the boy had returned to normal, slowly nodded, a smile returning to his face, explaining, "Many subjects of Hashirama cell transplant experiments will have these sequels. At least you survived. How do you feel?" "Better than ever." The boy extended his arms, feeling the strength in his fists, very strong physically, abundant in chakra, and significantly enhanced sensory abilities. "But there is something odd about my Kekkei Genkai." The boy stretched out his palm, and a wooden spike emerged from the center of it. "This power is very strong. I don't even need to do much to use it." "That's just a trivial part of the Kekkei Genkai's power." Orochimaru looked at the wooden spike in the boy's palm, his smile growing wider. "I will teach you more powerful wood-release techniques." "Do I still need to learn?" the boy asked somewhat aggrievedly in a soft voice. "Lord Orochimaru, I thought after the experiment was successful, you would use living corpse reincarnation to make my body the new vessel." "It's not time yet." Orochimaru's expression was somewhat meaningful. Living corpse reincarnation is a technique of immortality created by Orochimaru himself through spirit transference. It takes over another's body, achieving immortality and even gaining the body's strength and knowledge. Orochimaru has undergone living corpse reincarnation twice, the first time purely for experiment, choosing a relatively compatible body. The second reincarnation was because the body of the woman he's currently using is very compatible with his soul, able to fully unleash his power. According to Orochimaru's calculations, this woman's body can still be used for several years. Discarding it would be too wasteful. Such compatible bodies are not easy to find. Most importantly, living corpse reincarnation requires at least a 3-year interval, and it hasn't been long since Orochimaru switched to this woman's body. Orochimaru also hopes that the boy in front of him will learn more ninjutsu, so that when he takes over the boy's body in the future, Orochimaru can gain additional knowledge. Orochimaru prefers a finished product over a semi-finished one. As for whether the young boy will betray him after becoming powerful, Orochimaru is not worried about this, as he has watched the boy grow up from a young age. This little guy is named Akahara Kagura, an orphan. Orochimaru understands these children abandoned by the world very well. As long as you give them a bit of warmth, they will flock to it like moths. Even if it means throwing themselves into the fire, they won't choose to leave. The young Akahara Kagura, theoretically, should be the same. Although reality is quite absurd, Akahara Kagura is an exception. The system alert sounds in the boy's mind, reminding him of the fact that he is a transmigrator. System prompt: assist Boss Orochimaru in a human experiment. Task completed, reward received, genetic modification technique. Chapter 2, Akahara Kagura. Akahara Kagura is a transmigrator. In his past life, he was also called Kagura, a not-so-competent employee. Working hard was hardly ever rewarding enough, and Kagura only wanted to find some work to maintain a steady income and a stable life. Such employees, unbound by money, were always a hassle. Naturally, Kagura always walked the line between jobless and job yes. After casually sending out his resume, he received an interview invitation from a strange company, hoping he would come in for a discussion. He agreed. However, when Kagura woke up, he found himself in a new world as a young man named Akahara Kagura. Akahara Kagura was one of the orphans adopted by Orochimaru, spending his days in a research facility, primarily responsible for cleaning duties and part-time human experiment material. Fortunately, Akahara Kagura had a system activated within him that, as long as one works hard, the boss will recognize it, allowing him to gain a characteristic for conducting human experiments. The name of the system seemed fake, but its use was very real. As long as Akahara Kagura chose a superior and diligently completed their tasks, he could receive certain task rewards. If Akahara Kagura wanted to leave this world, there were only 2 choices. One is for the world to perish, leaving the job if the company collapses. The other is to find a way to be fired from this world, continuing to look for work in the next world. Both seem quite difficult. Moreover, Akahara Kagura didn't want to leave immediately. This was a rare life experience. By choosing a superior, the system would also provide a newcomer's welcome package. Unfortunately, the new Akahara Kagura could only choose Orochimaru as his superior. From the newcomer's welcome package, Akahara Kagura obtained a super characteristic called Science of the Ninja World, allowing him to survive in this highly deadly transplantation of Hashirama Cell's human experiment with a death rate of over 99%. Name, Akahara Kagura. Gender, male. Age, 10 years old. Date of birth, April 4th, year 43 of the Konoha calendar. Chakra nature, fire, wind, lightning, earth, water, yang. Total chakra, SSS, physique significantly enhanced, strength and speed far surpassing ordinary ninjas. Perception abilities increased, total chakra reaching the limit of a normal ninja. Derived from Hashirama cell transplantation. Skills, wood release. Would clone, an evolution of the Kekkei Genkai of wood release, creating clones from wood. These clones can turn into branches to entangle enemies when destroyed. Also, due to wood release chakra serving as a source of life, it's harder to distinguish these clones from the real body compared to other cloning techniques. Even the more advanced shadow clone technique. Wood release. Wood substitution, an evolution of the Kekkei Genkai of wood release, instantly substituting the user with a wooden decoy upon attack. Wood release. Wood transformation, an evolution of the Kekkei Genkai of wood release, transforming into another person using wood release, harder to detect compared to ordinary transformation techniques. Wood release. Piercing technique, a wood release Kekkei Genkai awakening, allowing the user to extend wooden spikes from their body and pierce the enemy. After stabbing the enemy, the user can cause the spikes to branch out further and penetrate the enemy's body by forming hand seals. Genetic modification technique enables embedding of special abilities at the genetic level through rewriting of genes, more convenient and safer than cell transplantation experiments. Traits, markless healing, exceptional self-healing ability, capable of healing one's own body without forming hand seals, derived from Hashirama cell transplantation. Would release Kekkei Genkai, the legendary Kekkei Genkai of the god of ninjas, Senju Hashirama, an extremely rare bloodline limit in the ninja world. Even the descendants of Senju Hashirama are unable to inherit it, derived from Hashirama cell transplantation. Science of the ninja world. When the host conducts human experiments, those that align with the principles of ninja science are guaranteed success, a bonus in the welcome package for new recruits. Superior. Orochimaru, it's obvious. For the system, choosing a good boss is important. Orochimaru's ability as a superior is all about technology and tough tasks. According to Akahara Kagura's observations, the system's task rewards are based on the superior situation. His career in the ninja world might require him to switch jobs multiple times. Just now, under the guise of losing control, Akahara Kagura tested attacking Orochimaru and found that there were no issues with attacking his own superior, and the system didn't impose any punishment. Perhaps the system encourages job hopping? After all, this kind of labor system seems to require many superiors. No, rather, this exploitative labor system surely encourages Akahara Kagura to work for more superiors. Akahara Kagura also plans to find another superior in the ninja world because Orochimaru, as a superior, has questionable character and has started to covet his body. Kagura, Orochimaru, unaware that the young man before him is already contemplating switching jobs and still planning for the future, needs Akahara Kagura to learn about wood release techniques. What's next? Go to Konoha. I have an ally there. When Orochimaru mentions his ally, the corners of his mouth curl into a strange smile. Learn the wood release techniques from him, and let me see how far you can go. Also, keep an eye on him, my ally. Yes, the young Akahara Kagura agreed, then looked up with some confusion. Konoha Village, Lord Orochimaru's hometown? Correct. Orochimaru nodded slightly, his voice becoming somewhat frivolous. Go take a look at my hometown. The scenery there is beautiful, However, the reminiscence in Orochimaru's eyes quickly faded, and he grinned strangely, whispering, "One day, I will return." Obviously, Orochimaru bears ill will towards his homeland. Akihara Kagura is indifferent to this. As a transmigrator, Akihara Kagura knows a little bit about the affairs of Konoha Village. Konoha, the strongest ninja village in the ninja world, and also Orochimaru's hometown, located in the wealthiest land of fire and led by the Hokage. Orochimaru and his two friends are known as the Three Sannin of Konoha, who have made significant contributions to the village, and were even close to becoming Hokage. However, his teacher, the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, vetoed him due to his dark heart. That's unreasonable. Which ninja in the ninja world is pure-hearted? As a result, the third Hokage Hiruzen chose a man as warm and radiant as the sun to become the fourth Hokage. Truly admirable. Unfortunately, not long after the fourth Hokage's succession, the Nine-Tails disturbance broke out in Konoha, and he sacrificed himself to resolve it. However, Orochimaru's opportunity did not come. Instead, he faced a crisis. The third Hokage rejected all candidates, took charge again, discovered Orochimaru's secret human experiments, and personally led the Umbu to capture Orochimaru. Orochimaru had no choice but to flee from Konoha and became a wanted rogue ninja. Once a hot candidate for Hokage, he became an S-class rogue ninja. Orochimaru's deviation was the main reason, but his ally in Konoha also had to bear some blame. That ally certainly was no good person. Orochimaru wanted to send Akihara Kagura to that ally, which for Akihara Kagura was an opportunity to get into the ranks of Konoha. This is about the ranks of the 5 great official institutions of the ninja world. Chapter 3. Where's my money? How important is it to secure this position? In his previous life, Akihara Kagura never had the opportunity to obtain such a position. According to the customs and relationships of his past life, if Orochimaru offered to help Akihara Kagura secure a position, Akihara Kagura would have to visit and present gifts during festivals and holidays. For Akihara Kagura in this life, the position in the Konoha still holds great significance. Akihara Kagura can use this to integrate into the world's most powerful ninjas. Konoha is the center of this world. As long as Akihara Kagura enters Konoha, he will always be able to know the direction of this world, and even influence the future of this world. Moreover, the system has also refreshed new tasks. System prompt. New work task. Go to Konoha to find Orochimaru's ally Shimura Danzo, learn wood release technique, and monitor Orochimaru's ally, Shimura Danzo. This work task has no time limit. The work tasks issued by the system are derived from higher UPS and have never specified completion times, making one feel this task may never end. However, this is exactly what makes Akihara Kagura vigilant. If one simply follows a routine, one could be bogged down in work for a lifetime. Only by taking initiative can one break free from a job with an unknown deadline. SSSSSS. Suddenly, the sound of a snake crawling came out. A small white snake suddenly wriggled out from the bushes, affectionately clinging to Orochimaru's leg, looking very attached. Orochimaru bent down, spread his hand, and the little white snake spit out a scroll into Orochimaru's palm. The scroll looked even larger than the small white snake's body, making it hard to imagine how it swallowed the scroll. But, after all, it's the ninja world. Such strange things are quite common. Orochimaru opened the scroll in his hand, looked at the text, and his mouth showed a sneer, as if he saw some interesting news. Strictly speaking, this is a sternly worded questioning letter, a questioning from Shimura Danzo. When Orochimaru was still in Konoha, Shimura Danzo had always been secretly funding and supporting his human experimentation project with wood release, even helping to find subjects for the experiment. Of course, such investment is definitely expecting a return. Orochimaru had also reciprocated Shimura Danzo, sending a successfully experimented wood release ninja to Danzo, giving him hope for the success of the project. After all, the investors need to see some results. Despite the fact that the wood-release ninja was far from as perfect as Akahara Kagura, that glimmer of hope made Shimura Danzo believe in the prospects of the wood-release human experiment research. The wood-release experiment. It's quite promising and will definitely succeed. Even though Orochimaru has now defected from the Konoha, Danzo is not afraid of the risks of being discovered collaborating with a rogue ninja, and continues to painstakingly fund Orochimaru's research. But investors are always expecting a return on their investment. The messages from Danzo are almost entirely filled with his questions. Where's my money? Where did you spend my money? Have your experimental projects yielded any new results in these years? Towards the end of the scroll, Danzo finally mentioned one thing. The previously unsuccessful wood-release test subject had been discovered by the third Hokage and taken directly into the Umbu under the Hokage commands, and hoping that Orochimaru could help cultivate another wood-release ninja. Similarly, Danzo also mentioned a request for a meeting. After all, it's been several years since Orochimaru defected from the Konoha, and he's long been out of Danzo's surveillance. This investor also wants to check on the progress of Orochimaru's project. Orochimaru ignored the questions on the scroll, looking at the last request made with a light smile on his face. This really couldn't be more coincidental. Just also consider it a settlement for him. What? Akihara Kagura looked at Orochimaru in surprise. Is there something his boss would hide from him? Nothing. Orochimaru smiled and looked at Akihara Kagura, gently stroking his hair, and said affectionately, "Someone will come to pick you up soon. Before that, I'll teach you how to release a curse mark." What curse mark? The cursed tongue eradication seal. Orochimaru said casually. The name of this curse mark sounds somewhat terrifying, yet its effect is rather poor, not frightening at all. This is a sealing curse mark created by Shimura Danzo, mainly used on his subordinates to prevent them from leaking his information. By implanting the cursed tongue eradication seal under someone's tongue, anyone cursed will trigger the curse mark if they attempt to speak about Shimura Danzo, rendering them unable to speak or even immobilize their body. Orochimaru intends for Akihara Kagura to go to the Konoha and join Shimura Danzo for another purpose, to act as his undercover agent. Kagura is to send messages to Orochimaru from time to time, obviously without being restrained by the cursed tongue eradication seal. In addition to the method of lifting the cursed tongue eradication seal, Orochimaru reminisced about his hometown in front of Kagura, letting him know a bit about the stories of Konoha. My teacher, the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, he has ruled Konoha for decades. Perhaps because he's grown old, teacher has become somewhat lenient, even when facing those who may endanger the Konoha. Young Akihara Kagura raised his eyebrows. He knew quite a few secrets about the people of Konoha. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was perceived as lenient, thought to be a kind-hearted old man, because someone else was playing the ruthless part. The Konoha is the strongest organization in the ninja world, and it can't always be in the sunlight. Naturally, it also needs some shady figures to deal with the darkness and secrecy. Without a doubt, Shimura Danzo was one of those figures. Akihara Kagura wanted to understand more stories about his future boss. Akihara Kagura quietly listened to Orochimaru's recollection about Sarutobi Hiruzen and curiously asked, "What about Lord Danzo, whom Lord Orochimaru asked me to seek out? What kind of person is he? Is there anything I should be aware of?" "Danzo, huh?" Orochimaru's smile grew thicker, and he sinisterly said, "Danzo is the shadow lurking behind the third Hokage. The life of a ninja is dark. The Hokage is the source of the ninja's darkness. Yet, humans always like to glorify themselves. My teacher liked to appear bright and approachable, and needed someone to handle some of the darkness for him. He. Orochimaru laughed somewhat proudly, as if pleased to have found something dishonorable about the third Hokage, and continued to mock. My teacher has always been so hypocritical, not wanting people to know that he has been tainted by darkness. The would-release human experiments with almost a 100% fatality rate were first proposed by him, but his will was too weak. Unable to bear the cost of the experiment's continuous failures, young Akahara Kagura felt like he wanted to clean his ears out. Why does Orochimaru always have to mention his teacher whenever he talks about Konoha? It's been several years since he defected from Konoha, and yet Orochimaru still mocks and scoffs at the third Hokage. Isn't it just because he wasn't made the Hokage of the village? Isn't it just because he was driven out of his hometown? Wasn't it Orochimaru himself who was at fault to begin with? Now, all I want to hear is Lord Danzo's story. Chapter 4, Task. Orochimaru holds quite a grudge against his own teacher. Fortunately, Orochimaru seems to realize he's an adult now, and that there should be limits to speaking ill of others behind their backs, especially not to show immaturity in front of young people. Anyway, my teacher is someone too kind and somewhat cowardly to taint himself with darkness. If you come across the third Hokage in Konoha, make sure to stay away from the old man. He's very good at beguiling people with his words, and it's easy to be brainwashed by his rhetoric. But, Lord Orochimaru, you're quite good at brainwashing people too. Akihara Kagura couldn't help but think to himself. Also, Orochimaru seemed to think of something, a rare serious look on his face as he smiled slightly. Kagura, you are my most perfect creation. The first Hokage, Hashirama, was revered as a god of ninjas, and you have almost perfectly assimilated with his cells. You are the most talented child of this era. The young man silently nodded. He had known this even before the would-release experiments. Otherwise, why would he dare to take the risk of undergoing human experiments? But what about Danzo? Fortunately, Orochimaru didn't forget Kagura's question and casually mentioned a few things about Shimura Danzo, seemingly not holding his investor in high regard. However, Kagura listened very seriously. After all, Shimura Danzo is his future boss, especially since he's undoubtedly one of the most difficult superiors in Konoha. It's necessary to understand the preferences of his future superior for better career planning. Shimura Danzo, the advisor to the Hokage of Konoha, a short-sighted yet ambitious old man. Because the third Hokage, Hiruzen, and Danzo were comrades who shared life-and-death experiences in their youth, Hiruzen showed considerable leniency towards Danzo, granting him significant power and tacitly allowing him to deal with the dirty troubles of Konoha. Young Akihara Kagura felt that Orochimaru was a bit insincere. The little bit of information Orochimaru provided was even less than what he already knew, making him wonder how he would operate in Konoha in the future. Clearly, Orochimaru didn't realize this. He thought Kagura might not like the gloomy old man Danzo much, and he wanted to talk to Kagura about some children he was interested in within Konoha. There's a very interesting child in Konoha. This little guy has shown exceptional talent from a young age, and also happens to possess a Kekkei Genkai that is a natural enemy to would-release. Who is it? The young Akihara Kagura was indeed a bit curious. In this era of Konoha, there seemed to be many geniuses in the village, and those geniuses that Orochimaru continuously obsessed over were certainly not ordinary. Uchiha Itachi. Orochimaru muttered a name familiar to Akihara Kagura and continued on his own. That little guy is a true genius. Even in times of peace, his skills and talents far exceed those of his peers. Orochimaru remembered seeing the young Uchiha Itachi training in a training room and couldn't help but admire the young man's talent. That child, if it's him, maybe he could awaken a higher level of Sharingan. Akihara Kagura's expression became somewhat strange. However, as a diligent employee, Akihara Kagura maintained professional integrity. Seeing Orochimaru so fixated on the genius child, he took the initiative to offer help to his superior. If Lord Orochimaru wishes to see Uchiha Itachi again, I will find an opportunity in the future and try to bring him before you. Good. Orochimaru gave the perceptive young man an approving look. Would-release and Sharingan undoubtedly, are the two most excellent Kekkei Genkai. If in the future Akahara Kagura really could bring Uchiha Itachi before him, Orochimaru plans to have the two geniuses fight face to face. Whoever wins, he would take over their body. As for whether Uchiha Itachi would agree to become a vessel, Orochimaru didn't care. He only needed one look to immobilize Uchiha Itachi. Akahara Kagura remained very respectful on the surface. If he really could bring Uchiha Itachi before Orochimaru in the future, Akahara Kagura planned to let Orochimaru and Uchiha Itachi have a fight, making Orochimaru realize the power of Sharingan, and thus becoming completely obsessed with it. Moreover, the system recognized this as a work task assigned by his superior. System prompt. New work task. Find an opportunity to bring Uchiha Itachi before Orochimaru. This kind of task, Akahara Kagura swore to complete it well. Even if these two people have met in some place they shouldn't have, Akahara Kagura must find a way to have them meet again. Time passed somewhat too quickly. Perhaps Orochimaru was too immersed in research experiments. Time passed somewhat slowly. Perhaps Akahara Kagura was too eager to head to Konoha. On the fourth day, someone finally came to the base. An old man leaning on a cane appeared around the base. His head was wrapped in bandages, even covering one eye's socket, as if one eye was wounded. Two ninjas closely followed the old man, their expressions wary as they surveyed the nearby environment, fearing danger to the old man inside the base. Lord Danzo, one of the ninjas, looked at the scattered rubble on the ground and spoke solemnly. A fierce battle took place here not long ago. Perhaps Orochimaru encountered an enemy. We shouldn't stay here. It's not an enemy. Orochimaru, with a smile on his face, came out accompanied by Akahara Kagura. It was just a little commotion caused by Kagura's successful experiment. The two ninjas immediately stood in front of the old man. Despite knowing the connection between the old man and Orochimaru, as far as status is concerned, Orochimaru is an S-rank rogue ninja of the village. Just being a rogue ninja makes Orochimaru a dangerous person. Stand down. With a single sentence, the old man dismissed his subordinates and slowly looked up at Orochimaru. It's been a long time, Orochimaru. It seems you've been doing well recently. The old man spoke slowly, seemingly making sure his words were clearly heard, indicating his superiority. However, the old man quickly revealed his intentions, not waiting for Orochimaru's response, and turning his gaze to Akahara Kagura beside him, he asked in a deep voice, "You just mentioned that the experiment was successful? This child?" "Correct. It's what you wanted." The corners of Orochimaru's mouth curled up as he spoke leisurely. Compared to the previous immature creation, the wood release in Kagura is much more powerful. This child will come with me. The old man, with half-closed eyes and an unquestionable determination in his voice, stated, "Only Konoha can wield the power of wood release." Chapter 5, New Superiors. Would release Kekkei Genkai. Undoubtedly, it was the lifelong obsession of Shimura Danzo. As for Danzo's claim that only Konoha could use the power of wood release, everyone present knew it was merely a joke, and no one took it seriously. This old man always spoke of doing everything for the sake of Konoha, but behind the scenes, he wished to hold all power in his own hands. No, Shimura Danzo wished to possess these powers himself. If he could create a second wood release ninja, it would mean that Orochimaru's technique was somewhat mature. Shimura Danzo's heart burned with desire. Perhaps he too could transplant Hashirama's cells, thus awakening the first Hokage Senju Hashirama's would release Kekkei Genkai. The old man's gaze sharply shifted from the boy to Orochimaru's face, immediately asking the question he most wanted to know. "Orochimaru, does the awakening of wood release in this child mean that Hashirama cells can now be successfully transplanted onto others?" No. Orochimaru shook his head, dousing the old man's fervor with cold water. The cell experiment on Kagura was a success, but it was a mere chance occurrence in the experiment. All right. The old man's mood suddenly became somewhat displeased. However, Orochimaru's tone changed, a cryptic smile appearing on his lips. I have found another experimental idea through this experiment, but I still need some precious experimental materials and a lot of funds. Akahara Kagura looked at Orochimaru in surprise. This success of Hashirama's cell transplantation was entirely because he possessed a feature of science of the ninja world. Any human experiment on him, as long as it conforms to the theory of science of the ninja world, is bound to succeed. How could it possibly give Orochimaru any new experimental ideas? Shimura Danzo, the investor, was not quite aware of the situation. The old man's brows furrowed slightly, seemingly in difficulty, but eventually he responded, "List what you need. I will try to arrange for it. I hope to see something satisfying next time." "Next time for sure." Orochimaru nodded, his smile growing wider. "Then I will take him away." Shimura Danzo waved to the boy, his old and sinister voice softened a bit. "Child, is your name Akahara Kagura?" "Yes." Orochimaru nodded again, pushing the boy's shoulder, smiling as he spoke. "Take good care of this child. I wouldn't want anything to happen to him. His body might still be useful for future experiments." The young Akahara Kagura was being pushed toward Shimura Danzo. "I understand." Shimura Danzo nodded in agreement. Shimura Danzo reached out to pat the boy's head, and after a moment of thought said, "From today onwards, you are a member of the Root. Forget your name. Your code name is Abdot." The boy's expression was instantly stunned. Damn it, is the old guy living too long? Akahara Kagura almost forgot about this. All members of the Root organization under Shimura Danzo are forced to discard their names and emotions and live their entire lives only known by a code name. However, system prompt. You have a new superior, Shimura Danzo, a reward for new member joining, unlocking new features. System prompt. You have a new superior, Sarutobi Hiruzen, a reward for new member joining, unlocking new features. Ninja in the Shadows. When the host needs information, they will receive the required content, a reward from the new member welcome package. Ninja Professor. When the host learns ninjutsu, any ninjutsu that conforms to the theory of ninjutsu will surely be learned successfully, a reward from the new member welcome package. Yes, Lord Danzo. Akahara Kagura quickly agreed. Although Shimura Danzo is not a good person, even wanting to change his name, the superior's welcome package is quite powerful. Moreover, once becoming a subordinate of Shimura Danzo, one automatically joins the organization called Konoha. In theory, all ninjas of the Konoha village are subordinates of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, and thus receive another new member welcome package. Moreover, these two features, whether it is the intelligence ability brought by Ninja in the Shadows or the learning ability brought by Ninja Professor, all are urgently needed by Akahara Kagura. Shimura Danzo is a good boss. Akahara Kagura feels that being renamed is a small matter. When the time comes that Lord Danzo no longer wishes to live, he will find a way to leave a whole corpse for Lord Danzo. Shimura Danzo does not know yet that the young man beside him has already started to think about his funeral. He waved his hand to indicate to two subordinates, planning to take Akahara Kagura and leave this place. Before leaving, Shimura Danzo seemed to think of something, suddenly turned back, and said to Orochimaru, "By the way, this base is no longer safe?" Orochimaru immediately furrowed his brow. This base, compared to other bases, has more complete experimental equipment and has always been well organized due to Akahara Kagura, a modern educated transmigrator managing it, making Orochimaru want to use this base as a long-term stronghold. "I have received a piece of intelligence." Shimura Danzo's expression looked somewhat unpleasant, as if he was mentioning someone he didn't want to bring up. "In a small town near this base, your old friend has appeared." "I know." Orochimaru immediately thought of a tall man with white hair. Orochimaru's expression also became grim. He clenched his teeth and muttered, "That guy Jiraiya really is a lingering. Some have reported his whereabouts to me." Since you left Konoha, Jiraiya has been secretly investigating your whereabouts. He is as foolishly naive as your teacher, but both are troublesome for us. Danzo, who never liked Jiraiya, who had a somewhat similar temperament to Hiruzen, coldly said, "If there's a chance, it would be best to kill him to avoid further trouble." "I know." Orochimaru's face immediately turned even more unsightly, and he said in a deep tone, "That Jiraiya is not so easy to deal with. I can leave Tatsuma here to help you." Danzo pointed to a guard ninja beside him. "Tatsuma has been your old partner. You too." "No need." Orochimaru coldly refused the suggestion, indifferently saying, "Jiraiya, that fool, has never been my match since ninja school." "Then I will be leaving first." Danzo nodded his head. Akihara Kagura stood beside them, somewhat speechless. Lord Danzo is getting old. His eyesight is not what it used to be. Can't he see such a small thing? Hoping Orochimaru could kill Jiraiya in this lifetime is like hoping you could kill the third Hokage Hiruzen in your lifetime. Chapter 6. You are not in line in the will of our route. On the way back to Konoha, Shimura Danzo always thought that Akihara Kagura was a well-behaved child, as children used as experiment subjects are usually scared into obedience by the terrifying human experiments. However, this little guy was an exception. Throughout the journey, Akihara Kagura showed great curiosity about the outside world, even asking if they could fish while resting by the river. Fishing? Only those with a lazy approach to life would fish. As the Konoha's darkness, the root, how could they waste time on such things? Even in desperate times, they would only resort to spearing fish for food. Shimura Danzo realized this child might have a great curiosity about the world, perhaps never having seen real darkness. He thought he needed to nurture him properly once they got back. Just let the little guy see the cruelty of the world, and he would surely become obedient and sensible. Danzo prided himself on being good with children, especially turning a relatively normal child into a merciless killing tool. However, Akihara Kagura quickly changed his mind. Wood release. Piercing technique. Akihara Kagura demonstrated a fish-spearing technique using wood release by the river. A wooden spike emerged from the young boy's palm, fiercely thrusting into the river and piercing through a meter-long fish, which started to struggle violently. In the next moment, the boy's fingers came together. The wooden spike astonishingly branched out and grew further. A dense cluster of wooden spikes grew inside the fish, completely piercing through its body, and blood instantly stained the river red. This wood release looked extremely cruel. "Lord Danzo, I caught a fish." Akihara Kagura looked at Shimura Danzo with a face full of joy. The boy's smile was pure and innocent, yet it appeared exceptionally cold-blooded and merciless against the backdrop of his bloody fishing method, as if taking lives was a pleasure for him. He was a natural-born killer. "Not bad." The old man watched this bloody scene and slowly expressed a rare compliment. An exquisite would release a good child. Regardless of the boy's would release Kekkei Genkai or his attitude towards life, Shimura Danzo felt that he really found a good seed this time, ensuring his future loyalty. Konoha Village, the wealthiest ninja village. Worried about his whereabouts being discovered and eager to see the full extent of Akihara Kagura's would release talent, Shimura Danzo hurriedly brought the boy back to Konoha. Shimura Danzo never liked to enter through the main gate when returning to the village. Instead, he preferred sneaking in through the back mountain of Konoha, opening the sealed barrier, and returning to the root organization's base. Akihara Kagura followed Shimura Danzo and jumped into a well, entering the root organization's base, immediately feeling the sinister and gloomy atmosphere. This superior had an overly dark style. The entire base of the root organization was hidden underground. Even the classical pavilions and towers built within the headquarters of the root organization, some luxuriously clinging to the cliffside, couldn't dispel the gloomy feel shrouded in darkness. The dull sound of knocking on wood echoed underground. A group of people couldn't help but turn their heads towards a boy who suddenly started knocking on the railing. Danzo looked displeased and coldly said to the boy, showing dissatisfaction with his behavior. "What are you doing? Be quiet." "Yes, Lord Danzo," Akahara Kagura responded and explained. "I originally thought it would be a stone railing, but to my surprise, it's wood. Lord Orochimaru once mentioned." "Shut up." A trace of anger appeared on Shimura Danzo's face as he stared at the boy and coldly said, "From today onwards, forget the name Orochimaru completely." "Yes, Lord Danzo." Akahara Kagura complied once more and continued. That person had mentioned that the underground air is humid, and wooden structures easily rot. Everyone present fell silent. Shimura Danzo thought his earlier words might have been too subtle, and wanted to reiterate to the boy to forget not just the name of Orochimaru, but the person entirely. Yet he felt it would seem too petty. "I'm off to handle official business." Shimura Danzo, somewhat helplessly, waved his hand and instructed his subordinate, "Tatsuma, arrange his accommodation and make him understand the will of Root before bringing him to me." "Yes." Aburame Tatsuma nodded respectfully and coldly looked at the boy. "Follow me. Don't wander off. This base is full of traps and forbidden areas." "I understand." Akahara Kagura obediently followed behind Aburame Tatsuma. The Root organization's headquarters was vast. The whole base was like a giant well, with tall classical buildings clinging to the stone walls and bridges connecting these structures. This is where you'll be staying." Aburame Tatsuma led Akahara Kagura to a dormitory. The room only had one cabinet. The floor was covered with a bedding. A lamp was placed in the corner of the wall, and it looked a bit empty. Akahara Kagura glanced at his dwelling and made a request. "Get me a bed. I don't like sleeping on the floor." "No." Aburame Tatsuma shook his head and said coldly, "Members of the Root do not need useless emotions and external sensations. Your only task is to accept the arrangements." Akahara Kagura raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you my boss? Or are you going to be my boss in the future?" "No, and I will not be." Aburame Tatsuma shook his head again and answered, "Only Lord Danzo is the sole leader. Everyone acts based on Lord Danzo's commands. That's the theory. In reality, the Root also has some unwritten rules. As Danzo's close guard, Aburame Tatsuma's status is obviously higher than other members. However, the hearts of the Root members are devoid of distractions, only focused on the tasks assigned by Lord Danzo. When have they ever cared about hierarchical status? Now I convey to you the will of Root." Aburame Tatsuma didn't notice the young man's emotions and continued on his own. "Members of the Root have no names, no emotions, no past, and no future. Only the mission is in their hearts. Supporting the great tree of Konoha in the background is the deeply rooted will of U.S. Root." "What's your name?" Akahara Kagura asked his first question. "Aburame Tatsuma." "Isn't that a name? Aren't you a member of the Root?" "That's not a name." Aburame Tatsuma's answer was very quick. As if he had been indoctrinated before, "Aburame Tatsuma is my code name in the Root. Lord Danzo is familiar with my past, so he made my past name my code name in the Root. You remember you have a past." Akahara Kagura seemed to find a loophole and slowly said, "This doesn't quite align with the will of our Root." Chapter 7. Only Lord Danzo can use that name. Aburame Tatsuma has an illusion. Even though Akahara Kagura is just a new recruit to the Root organization, he feels like the boy speaks, as if he is a leader in charge of personnel for the Root organization. Himself, instead, feels like the new recruit coming for a job interview. Aburame Tatsuma thinks there's something off about this exchange. After pondering for a while, Aburame Tatsuma realizes he can't answer the questions posed by Akahara Kagura, nor can he interpret the will of Root. Unable to solve the problem, he can only deal with the person who poses a problem. Aburame Tatsuma simply refuses to entangle with Akahara Kagura and coldly says, "Kid, the affairs of your senpais are none of your business. Just take care of your own issues. I just don't quite understand what the will of Root represents." Akahara Kagura looks at Aburame Tatsuma and poses a question. With no past and no future, then what is my life? Mission? Aburame Tatsuma quickly answers the question. You just need to focus on your mission. There's no need to ponder what your life is. Then tell me. Akahara Kagura poses a philosophical question. The tasks I will do in the future will become the past. Then do past tasks have meaning? Do the tasks I have yet to do in the future have any meaning? Aburame Tatsuma falls silent. This ninja from the Aburame clan understood the philosophical pondering posed by Akahara Kagura, but eventually decided to choose the simplest way of handling it. You just need to focus on your mission. There's no need to think about whether your tasks have any meaning. Akahara Kagura can't help but admire the others a bit. Aburame Tatsuma, fearing that this young man would pose another strange philosophical question, intends to completely cut off these messy thoughts with his words. You are a member of Root. There's no need to think about these questions. What you need to do is to forget your name, your emotions, your past, your future, and just carry out the tasks given to you by Lord Danzo. Okay, I got it. Akahara Kagura nonchalantly agrees. I hope you can do it. Just as Aburame Tatsuma thought he had finally taken care of the trouble, a fist suddenly smashed into his abdomen, slamming him hard against the wall. I understand all that, said the young Akahara Kagura, twisting his wrist, his voice cold. But, Aburame Tatsuma, who allowed you to call me by that name? What? Blood spurted from Aburame Tatsuma's astonished face. Whether from the standpoint of identity, strength, or even logic, Aburame Tatsuma couldn't figure out why this newcomer would ambush him. Most importantly, this kid's strength was enormous, and his speed was shockingly fast. Akahara Kagura's physical abilities were extraordinarily astounding, and Aburame Tatsuma didn't realize that Orochimaru relied on the curse mark to bind Akahara Kagura to avoid the young man's ambush. Aburame Tatsuma, a Jonin ninja, was caught off guard and critically injured by the young man's ambush. His internal organs were even smashed. That name was given to me by Lord Danzo, Akahara Kagura said, walking up to the heavily injured Aburame Tatsuma, coldly explaining the reason for his ambush. From today onwards, remember this. In this world, only Lord Danzo is allowed to call me by that name. Aburame Tatsuma could not understand the young man's line of thinking. This kid must be somewhat off. Aburame Tatsuma spat out another mouthful of blood and said, That's just a code name, and the only one you'll be able to use in the future, but not one you can call. Akahara Kagura shook his head, seemingly pondering for a while, and said, If you come looking for me later, call me by the name I used in the past. After all, it's not like we haven't used past names before. I understand. Wait, that's not quite right. Aburame Tatsuma, looking at the young man standing beside him, decided not to be swayed by the young man's way of thinking, and gradually began to think normally. This kid is still too arrogant. Perhaps Orochimaru spoiled him too much before. Aburame Tatsuma slowly struggled to fall off the wall, clutching a severely pained abdomen, enduring the pain, and said, The newcomer indeed needs a lesson. A swarm of black bugs crawled out of his mouth. This scene looked somewhat terrifying and scary. This is a secret technique from the Aburame clan of Konoha, nurturing insects within the body and using them in battle. Kid, it's better to respect your senpais. Aburame Tatsuma controlled the insects to quickly entangle Akahara Kagura. Akahara Kagura's face changed slightly. Even small insects, when densely packed, can feel quite unnerving, let alone these strange species from the ninja world. However, insects are just insects, pitifully slow. Akahara Kagura stepped forward, swiftly evading the insects, and lunged toward Aburame Tatsuma, well aware of his frail body. Boom! The young man fist hit Aburame Tatsuma again. This time, however, the feeling of the punch was light, almost like hitting air. And indeed it was, as Aburame Tatsuma's body instantly turned into a swarm of insects. Is this insect clone? Akihara Kagura involuntarily widened his eyes. Secret technique. Insect sphere. In the blink of an eye, the swarm of insects completely surrounded Akihara Kagura's body, frenziedly biting at the chakra inside him. Akihara Kagura was shrouded in a mist of insects, as if wrapped in a layer of black cloth. Aburame Tatsuma's real body slowly appeared, looking at the kid surrounded by his insects, and started to mockingly educate the newcomer. Kid, don't be scared of the insects. As soon as I released the insects, I secretly created an insect clone. Based on what I know about your age, at the start of a fight you'll only attack my body with fists and also don't know a lot of ninjutsu. Now, be a good boy. Aburame Tatsuma spread his hands, seemingly satisfied with the first lesson he provided to the newcomer. The parasitic insects will soon devour all the chakra in your body. Then tell your insects to work harder. Akihara Kagura's voice came out from the mist of insects, saying, Aburame Tatsuma, haven't you ever fed them enough? What's going on? Aburame Tatsuma furrowed his brows in surprise. This kid hasn't lost his ability to resist. This kid's chakra, isn't it a bit too abundant? What surprised Aburame Tatsuma the most was that this kid's mental strength was too strong, not even slightly afraid of these dense insects. This is such a waste of time. Akihara Kagura extended his arm, watching some of the overfed insects fall off his body, and spoke leisurely to conclude. Insects are just insects after all. Insects should live hidden in corners, not arrogantly think that by sheer numbers, they can take down an enemy whose strength they can't even begin to imagine. Chapter 8. Lord Danzo's will is the will of the root, but the will of the root may not necessarily be Lord Danzo's will. Aburame Tatsuma had never seen such a scene before. Akihara Kagura simply stood there as the dense swarm of bugs surrounding the young man tumultuously fell to the ground, piling up a thick layer of insects. How could there be an enemy who doesn't mind being bitten by bugs? His own bugs. How could they overeat to the point of bursting? Aburame Tatsuma had used his clan's secret techniques to defeat many enemies. Any enemy caught by his controlled swarm would be devoured of their chakra by the bugs, losing their ability to fight. This time, an unexpected event occurred. As Akihara Kagura said, bugs are just bugs after all. The bugs can only contain so much chakra, and the imagination of their breeder, Aburame Tatsuma, is also limited. He had never imagined someone could have such abundant chakra that the parasites within him would lose their ability to move. Secret technique. Insect cocoon. Aburame Tatsuma had other methods. The Aburame clan often encountered the problem of running out of bugs in battle, so they also had unique secret techniques, using chakra to create insect cocoons to hatch more bugs. Parasitic insects. Insect tornado. A swarm of bugs turned into a tornado and attacked Akihara Kagura. I've said it before, bugs are just bugs. Akihara Kagura stomped on the floor, causing his inner chakra to erupt. The fluctuation of chakra on the boy's body made Aburame Tatsuma feel a great crisis, let alone the bugs he just hatched. The bugs that encountered the chakra explosion suddenly stiffened, as if blown by a hurricane, and countless bugs were thrown out, all smashed against the wall by this strong impact force. This chakra, cold sweat dripped down Aburame Tatsuma's forehead. For all these years, it was the first time Aburame Tatsuma had seen someone merely causing their inner chakra to erupt could form such a momentum. His chakra was so powerful that Aburame Tatsuma could say it was unparalleled in his life. This kid is a terrifying opponent. While Aburame Tatsuma was still marveling in his heart, he saw Akihara Kagura's body suddenly turn into a black shadow and rush towards him, frightening him into hurriedly dodging. It seems there's not much combat technique. Aburame Tatsuma watched the boy's somewhat clumsy attack method and felt slightly relieved. Although the chakra is very powerful, he has never received any formal ninja training. It's undeniable this kid has talent, but to become a powerful force in the root organization, There is still a long way to go. Kid, ninja battles aren't just about chakra. Aburame Tatsuma's mood slowly relaxed, and he appeared quietly beside Akahara Kagura, elbowing heavily down on his shoulder and neck. Akahara Kagura felt a severe pain in his shoulder. However, by the time Akahara Kagura turned his head, Aburame Tatsuma had already moved to the front of the boy, kicking heavily into the boy's chest. Akahara Kagura was sent flying. Aburame Tatsuma flew forward in pursuit, tightly grasping the boy's neck and pressed him against the wall. "Are you going to behave now?" A mischievous smile appeared on the boy's face. This smile tightened Aburame Tatsuma's heart. Could this kid have some other combat method? Now that he is controlled, can he still form seals and cast jutsu? Crack! Akahara Kagura's clothes suddenly ripped. A sharp wooden spike emerged from his body, piercing Aburame Tatsuma's shoulder. This is no hand seal jutsu. The wooden spike of it would release Kekiai Genkai, not cast using ninjutsu but growed from inside the body of the user. He had been too careless. Aburame Tatsuma immediately realized his peril. A wooden spike was not something Aburame Tatsuma would fear, but he had seen the boy use wooden spikes to catch fish and knew how dangerous it was. This spike would grow inside his body. Even if the spike was only in the shoulder, once it branched and grew inside, it would certainly pierce his entire body. To escape this crisis, he either had to stop the boy from forming seals or quickly remove the spike. But it was too late. Bang! Taking advantage of the moment Aburame Tatsuma was distracted, Akahara Kagura's elbow smashed against the wall, and using the force, he sent Aburame Tatsuma flying. Wooden release. Piercing. Akahara Kagura raised his fingers. "I give up." Aburame Tatsuma hurriedly raised his hand. This kid was not some kind-hearted coward. Aburame Tatsuma had seen firsthand. He was someone who took pleasure in killing, and dying at the hands of this kid was too humiliating. "Sorry for the offense, senpai." Akahara Kagura's face immediately revealed a friendly smile. "From now on, to each their own. I'll call you senpai, and you call me Lord Kagura." Aburame Tatsuma didn't know how to react in his mind. A newbie, wanted to ride on his head on the first day. As a loser, Aburame Tatsuma really couldn't refute it. The kid was willing to call him senpai, which was somewhat respectful. Akibara Kagura looked at the silent Aburame Tatsuma and asked with a smile, "Senpai, I am so respectful to you. Are you not willing to even call me Lord Kagura?" Aburame Tatsuma's face was a bit embarrassed. "This violates the will of the root." "The will of the root." Akibara Kagura slowly shook his head. The young man's smile seemed somewhat innocent. "The will of the root doesn't matter to me. The will of Lord Danzo is what's most important." This kid really knows what he's talking about. Aburame Tatsuma had to admit that the kid really got the point. But Aburame Tatsuma still felt something was off and explained, "Lord Danzo's will is the will of the root, the will of the root. The will of the root is just an extension of Lord Danzo's will." Akibara Kagura interrupted Aburame Tatsuma's words and countered, "Lord Danzo's will is the will of the root, but the will of the root may not necessarily be Lord Danzo's will. According to you, we follow Lord Danzo's orders. Does Lord Danzo have to follow the orders of us, the root?" "You are right." Aburame Tatsuma felt his brain wasn't working well enough and still wanted to prove his point. "But we, the root, and Lord Danzo are one." Akibara Kagura looked dissatisfied at Aburame Tatsuma and retorted, "We are not one with Lord Danzo. We are just subordinates of Lord Danzo. We can sacrifice for Lord Danzo. Does Lord Danzo have to sacrifice for us?" "Of course not." Aburame Tatsuma quickly shook his head. Although Aburame Tatsuma still felt something was off, he couldn't refute Akibara Kagura's point. The kid made a lot of sense. A feeling rose again in Aburame Tatsuma's heart. How is this kid more loyal to Lord Danzo than himself, who has followed Lord Danzo for many years as a guard? All right, stop thinking. Akiba Kaguro waved his hand and glanced at the messy room, saying, "First take me to see Lord Danzo, and arrange a room for me tonight. Put a bed in it in advance." "Okay." Abdurrahim Tatsuma agreed. This veteran member of the Root organization thought this little matter didn't violate any principles. Chapter 9. Current Situation of the Ninja World. Root Organization's Base. Shimura Danzo's Office. As the advisor of the Hokage of Konoha and the supreme leader of the Root Organization, Danzo's official duties are quite busy. Every day, he receives intelligence scrolls from various channels. Based on these intelligence scrolls, Shimura Danzo needs to think about how to benefit himself. No, rather, how to benefit Konoha. The Land of Rain, still in civil war. The leader of Rain Village, Hanzo the Salamander, stays hidden. That bastard Hanzo. Back then, I helped him surround and exterminate the Akatsuki organization, and he still refuses to honor our alliance. The news from the Land of Wind. The daimyo of the Land of Wind has cut the budget of Sand Village again. Gaara, the Jinchuriki of the One-Tail in Sand Village, was attacked and went berserk, suppressed by the 4th Kazekage Raza with magnet release. Gold Dust. Does Sand Village still dream of utilizing the tailed beast? The news from the Land of Earth. Frequent terrifying explosions occur outside of Rock Village, suspected to be the work of the 3rd Tsuchikage student, that woman Yakushi Nono. She really can gather a lot of information for Konoha. But why does this woman want a photo of Yakushi Kabuto again? The news from the Land of Lightning. Some claim the 4th Reikage stole their clan's secret technique. Cloud Village has always been ambitious. They've longed to steal Konoha's Byakugan. We must find a way to suppress them. Try to incite conflict between them and Rock Village. The Land of Water. Still no news? What exactly is happening inside Mist Village? All the spies who tried to infiltrate have disappeared. Is there a conspiracy brewing? Shimura Danzo sat in front of his office desk, his face changing unpredictably as he read through all the external news. Then he looked at another pile of intelligence. This pile of intelligence was about the internal movements of Konoha. Let's see what happened in the village. In the 2 days I was away, as an ambitious old man, Danzo was sure to focus not only on external matters, but also secretly monitor the internals of Konoha, eliminating elements destabilizing to the village, and striving to maintain a facade of stability. The opening ceremony of the new term at the Ninja Academy. 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen delivers a speech at the school. Shimura Danzo looked at this news with a sudden grimace, but could only snort in contempt. Being Hokage isn't done this way, that monkey, always wasting time on useless things. This piece of news was of no use. What Danzo hated the most was being constantly reminded that his old friend Sarutobi Hiruzen was still actively working as a Hokage under the sun. Yet, Danzo had to keep a close watch on Hiruzen, hoping to catch him in a mistake, preferably to remove him from his position as Hokage, or try to kill him. Danzo casually flipped through the news of the opening ceremony and saw the information on the second sheet, which was a list of new students enrolling at the Ninja Academy. Hyuga Hinata, the eldest daughter of the main branch of the Hyuga clan. Aburame Shino Inazuka Kiba, Nara Shikamaru from the Nara clan, Akimichi Choji from the Akimichi clan, Yamanaka Ino from the Yamanaka clan. All of this generation's Ino, Shika, Cho are here. Uchiha Sasuke, the youngest son of Uchiha Fugaku, named after the monkey's father to please him. Under normal circumstances, Shimura Danzo wouldn't care about these children. Unfortunately, among the new students of the Ninja Academy this year was one child worth monitoring. Despite being only 6 years old, all of Konoha must be extremely cautious of him, as this child could potentially be a crisis that destroys the village at any moment. Uzumaki Naruto. Shimura Danzo slowly came across the name he was most concerned about, a shadow crossing his eyes. A Jinchuriki of 9 tails. He should never have been sent to school. Tailed beasts, the most fearsome creatures in the ninja world. There are 9 tailed beasts in total. 1 tail in Sand Village, 2 tails and 8 tails in Cloud Village, 3 tails and 6 tails in Mist Village, 4 tails and 5 tails in Rock Village, and 9 tails in Konoha Village. A small village called Waterfall Village possesses the 7 tails. According to the number of tails, the more tails a tailed beast has, the larger its chakra reserve, and people often use this to judge the strength of the tailed beasts. Tailed beasts naturally possess terrifying amounts of chakra and formidable strength. Once a ninja village employs a tailed beast in war, it can immediately alter the course of the conflict. However, tailed beasts are inherently violent and quick to anger, never easily utilized. To harness the tailed beast's power and enhance the village strength, the major ninja villages in the ninja world creatively sealed the tailed beast into human bodies, creating Jinchuriki, who could utilize the tailed beast chakra. In the great ninja wars, Jinchuriki often became human weapons on the battlefield, with other countries frequently using tailed beasts to determine the outcomes of battles. However, Konoha never employed the 9 tails, the most powerful of all tailed beasts, fearing its strength and even protecting its Jinchuriki. Until 6 years ago, the village faced the 9 Tails Rebellion. The 9 Tails suddenly broke free from its Jinchuriki's seal and went on a rampage, leading to the sacrifice of the 4th Hokage and many elite ninjas, causing severe losses to the village. Since then, Konoha has been plagued by internal and external troubles. Fortunately, before dying, the 4th Hokage resealed the 9 Tails into a child named Uzumaki Naruto, preventing the village from losing the 9 Tails. However, this put Konoha in a difficult position, holding the strongest tailed beast, yet unable to utilize it or even prevent problems from its Jinchuriki. To prevent another incident like the 9 Tails Rebellion, the 3rd Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, and Shimura Danzo nearly racked their brains. Danzo suggested not to protect the Jinchuriki's identity anymore, considering using other villages' experiences in training Jinchuriki, possibly creating a 9 Tails Jinchuriki that Konoha could utilize. Let the child Uzumaki Naruto endure a miserable childhood from a young age, just like the Jinchuriki of other villages, letting this child know that he is seen as a monster in the eyes of others. By forcing the child to get accustomed to a miserable life from a young age, he will remain calm no matter what happens in the future, and it will also prevent the tailed beast inside him from losing control. However, this is somewhat dangerous. To avoid Uzumaki Naruto from emotionally breaking down during his growth, which could lead to issues with the 9 Tails inside him, the 3rd Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, would often appear at critical moments to comfort the child and encourage him to bravely face his miserable life. If you provide warmth to someone in their darkest moments, that warmth will be like a fire, encouraging the person to face the darkness with a torch in hand. On the other hand, and most importantly, the 3rd Hokage fortified the Jinchuriki seal on Uzumaki Naruto to prevent the 9 Tails from losing control and going on a rampage, in case it ever happened. Theoretically, this is quite unfair to a child. However, having experienced the brutalities of war, the 3rd Hokage doesn't see it as unfair and even thinks Uzumaki Naruto is quite fortunate. Chapter 10. Promotion on the first day of work. The rules of the ninja world are cruel indeed. Even a child is considered a tool for ninjas. During the great ninja wars, villages would send children as young as 6 to battle, which was not uncommon. The only slightly conscience-stricken is probably that Uzumaki Naruto's parents were heroes. Naruto's father was Namake's Minato, the 4th Hokage of the Konoha, and his mother was Uzumaki Kushina, the former Jinchuriki of 9 Tails. During the 9 Tails attack, the couple sacrificed themselves to protect the village. They might have thought the village would take care of their orphan. After all, Minato was the 4th Hokage, close to the 3rd, and had many comrades in the village. They might have believed that the village would protect the Jinchuriki, as Kushina was the previous 9 Tails Jinchuriki and was well protected. hardly facing any discrimination or exclusion. Regardless, they are both dead now. Only a child named Uzumaki Naruto is left to face this dangerous world alone. The Jinchuriki of Nine Tails, the most malevolent of tailed beasts, also the strongest weapon of war in the world. Danzo put down the list in his hand and muttered coldly, "If what release can suppress the Nine Tails, then we can implement a real Jinchuriki training program, turning the Jinchuriki into the sharpest weapon for the Konoha." Danzo's dreams were simple. First, to become Hokage and reach the pinnacle of life. Second, for the Konoha to unify the ninja world and reach its zenith. Unfortunately, neither dream was realized, and as Danzo grew older, they were almost becoming a fantasy. But great dreams always start with a first step, and Danzo thought of Akahara Kagura, brought from Orochimaru, feeling a surge of ambition. If this child's talent and would release is strong enough, let him seize the opportunity to kill Sarutobi Hiruzen and help Danzo become Hokage. Then use the child's would release to refine the Nine Tails Jinchuriki into a weapon of war, leveraging the Nine Tails' power to ignite a great ninja war to unify the ninja world. Now, it's time to take that first step. First step, test Akahara Kagura's, would release talent. Knock, knock, knock. A knock came from the door. "Come in." Danzo invited the person in. Yes, Lord Danzo. Aburame Tatsumai and Akahara Kagura walked in. Danzo looked up and saw that Aburame Tatsumai had bandages wrapped around his shoulder and frowned unconsciously. "Tatsumai, are you injured?" "This is—" Aburame Tatsumai hesitated, finding it hard to speak. "I injured him." Akahara Kagura interrupted Aburame Tatsumai, saying, "The room arranged for me by the senpai wasn't comfortable. He helped me loosen my bones, and I helped him bleed a bit." Aburame Tatsumai couldn't help but glance sideways. Shimura Danzo's expression was somewhat displeased. Don't indulge in momentary pleasures. After Danzo sternly rebuked him, he suddenly thought of something and abruptly asked, "Did you two have a fight? Who won?" Senpai changed the room to a more comfortable one. After Akahara Kagura finished speaking, he continued nonchalantly, "It's just a minor injury, it won't kill him. I wanted to come to see Lord Danzo quickly, but the senpai insisted on dressing the wound first." Aburame Tatsumai's eyelid twitches. Is this kid speaking human language? Although coming quickly to see Lord Danzo is indeed more important, there wasn't any particularly urgent task today. Besides, they came on the way to bandage their wounds, so it shouldn't be wrong in any way. Danzo felt something was not quite right. Theoretically speaking, there's nothing wrong with what Aburame Tatsumai did, but Akahara Kagura's words also made sense. Not willing to meet him sooner because of dressing a wound. Root. Everything should be based on his own will. Members of the Root, always ready to sacrifice their lives for missions. Aburame Tatsumai has always been his guard, and the tasks he performs are becoming easier. Has he fallen to the point where he can't even tolerate a minor injury? No, that's not the point. The point is that the young man won over Aburame Tatsumai. Even if Aburame Tatsumai's reputation isn't prominent, being only skilled in infiltration and intelligence gathering, he's still an experienced jonin of Konoha, and he lost to a young man. A hint of turmoil arose in Danzo's heart as he stared intently at the young man before him. As he stood up, intending to say something, he suddenly stopped. "Tatsumai, go to the land of water. Perhaps you have grown too comfortable by my side, so much so that you have forgotten that ninjas do not fear sacrifice." Danzo turned his head to look at Aburame Tatsumai and commanded in a deep voice, "I remember you are the best in the Root at infiltrating and spying. Investigate the intelligence of the land of water and find out what conspiracy Miss Village is hiding." Yes, Lord Danzo. After accepting the mission, Aburame Tatsumai raised his head, wanting to explain to Danzo that he was not that kind of person. Lord Danzo." Akahara Kagura interrupted Aburame Tatsumai, saying, "Why not entrust this mission to me? I haven't done a single thing for Lord Danzo yet." "No need. Danzo shook his head and continued, "This mission is too dangerous. It's too soon for you. The wood-release Kekkei Genkai in you is more important than anyone else's. Since you were able to defeat Tatsuma, it proves your strength has surpassed his. Stay by my side as my attendant for a while, and I will teach you the will of the root." As Danzo spoke, he slowly stood up from the table. "Come to the practice field with me. I will teach you new wood-release techniques." Yes, Akihara Kagura hurriedly followed. Aburame Tatsuma stood at the door, watching the old and the young leaving. His eyes revealed a sense of confusion. What has happened in the meantime? Never mind. Aburame Tatsuma no longer dwelled on it. As long as he returns from the mission in the land of water, time will prove everything. Lord Danzo will see that he is never the type of ninja who clings to life out of fear of death. On the corridor bridge, the young man followed the old man with a calm and focused expression. Even if the ninjas of the root always obey Danzo's will, they are ultimately not the same person and will walk different paths due to differences in their words. It was doomed from the beginning, because Danzo never fully trusts the members of the root. Otherwise, he wouldn't have placed a cursed seal on the tongues of the root members to prevent them from leaking information. Chapter 11. Loyalty is the best policy. At the training ground, Akihara Kagura watched Shimura Danzo intently. His superior wanted to teach him a new wood-release jutsu and was methodically explaining the origin of the technique. This jutsu is called wood-release, Advent of a World of Flowering Trees, originating from the first Hokage of Konoha, Senju Hashirama, and requires a large amount of chakra. Theoretically, there was no need to preserve this wood-release technique, because the Kekkei Genkai of the first Hokage, Hashirama, had not been passed down. However, at the request of the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama, the first Hokage still recorded all his wood-release techniques in the Scroll of Seals of Konoha, waiting for a new inheritor of the wood-release Kekkei Genkai to emerge from Konoha. Shimura Danzo, of course, had seen the Scroll of Seals. Unfortunately, as he was not the Hokage, the Scroll of Seals could only be kept by successive Hokages, and Danzo could only remember the wood-release techniques in it. "Watch closely." Shimura Danzo spread his hands, relaxed his 5 fingers, then slowly brought his hands together, forming a snake hand seal. This technique only requires forming a snake seal, and you can directly activate the chakra in your body. Wood release. Advent of a World of Flowering Trees. Shimura Danzo let out a fierce shout. Akihara Kagura was startled by Danzo's voice. However, nothing happened. The training ground became quiet again. A crow flew leisurely across the sky. Shimura Danzo didn't have the wood-release Kekkei Genkai or a large amount of chakra, so naturally nothing happened. All right. Shimura Danzo didn't feel embarrassed at all, returning to his usual serene demeanor. "I have taught you this technique. Now try it." Akihara Kagura's eyelids twitched. This method of teaching was a bit too abstract, wasn't it? Why is this person pretending to make a hand sign, telling him this ninjutsu is called wood release, Advent of a World of Flowering Trees, and then believing he can unleash the god of ninjas ninjutsu? All right, now that you know 1 + 1 = 2, let's go ahead and prove one of the world's 3 great conjectures, the Goldbox conjecture. What a joke! Unless this person can cheat. System prompt. Ninja Professor trait activated. The host has released Kekkei Genkai. Chakra level reached SSS. Currently learning would release. Advent of a World of Flowering Trees fits ninjutsu theory. Would release. Advent of a World of Flowering Trees successfully learned. System prompt. You have acquired a new skill. Would release. Advent of a World of Flowering Trees. Would release. Advent of a World of Flowering Trees. A secret technique of would release Kekkei Genkai. The user uses their own chakra as a source of life, rapidly growing trees from the ground and instantly transforming the environment into a forest. All trees in the forest can be controlled by the user to attack the enemy, and it is easier to use other would release ninjutsu with the help of the forest. Akihara Kagura, mimicking Shimura Danzo's manner, slowly brought his palms together. Chakra surged within his body, and a young, tender roar came from his throat. Wood release. Advent of a world of flowering trees. The grass on the training ground trembled. Thick tree roots burst out from the ground, rapidly growing into towering trees, transforming the entire training field into an ancient forest. Shimura Danzo couldn't help but widen his eyes. Even if Shimura Danzo had hopes for Akahara Kagura, he did not believe that this young man could learn such a powerful ninjutsu so quickly. What a joke! Orochimaru wasn't lying this time. This young man's would release talent, just from the technique of advent of a world of flowering trees alone, was evidently more powerful than the previous would release ninja, warming Danzo's heart and reigniting his hope for taking the position of Hokage. Lord Danzo, Akahara Kagura turned around, looking at the shocked old man, seemingly a bit uneasy. Is it because I destroyed the training ground? Have I caused some trouble? If someone finds out I destroyed the training ground, will it bring trouble to you? No. Shimura Danzo quickly shook his head, a rare smile appearing on his lips as he praised the subordinate. You did very well. This is just a training ground. From today onwards, it will be your very own. I didn't ask for this. Akahara Kagura couldn't help but want to complain in his heart. Making such a big commotion wasn't just for Shimura Danzo. Besides wanting this new superior to recognize his talent, he also wanted to see if he could cause some trouble for Lord Danzo. After all, using such powerful chakra in the Konoha, he wondered if the third Hokage would notice. Could he possibly attract the attention of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen? After all, such a talented would release ninja should cause some new conflict between Hiruzen and Danzo. These two old friends, right? Shimura Danzo also thought of this. This child has just unleashed such powerful chakra. Wouldn't the monkey notice? Shimura Danzo's expression looked somewhat grim, seemingly grinding his teeth. He must guard against Hiruzen, that old monkey who always steals his things. He immediately set up a sealing barrier in this training ground to prevent Sarutobi Hiruzen from discovering that he had acquired another would-release ninja, and even an unexpected genius at that. Besides, Shimura Danzo's gaze also fell on Akahara Kagura. This child will become very strong in the future. He will surely become the most useful tool for Konoha. The child is very obedient to him now, very close to him. Even more loyal and pure than Abraham Tatsuma, a 10-year-old child who doesn't have complex thoughts. At this age, it's easy to instill thoughts. Just a curse mark can control a person's actions, but not their thoughts. He must think of a way to make this child forever loyal to him. Inside the root training ground, the young man and the old man each had their own thoughts. Akahara Kagura secretly activated the characteristics of Ninja in the Shadows. Whenever he needed information, the Ninja in the Shadows feature would store relevant information in the form of videos inside his brain. In Akahara Kagura's brain, an image appeared. Akahara Kagura wanted to investigate information about the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen to see what the Hokage was up to, whether he had noticed the genius waiting in the root training ground, whether he had realized Danzo was up to no good again, whether he was interested in coming to cause some trouble for Danzo. As a subordinate of Lord Danzo, he must think of a way to cause more trouble for Lord Danzo. Only when Lord Danzo encounters many troubles will he have the opportunity to prove to Lord Danzo just how loyal he truly is. Chapter 12. Let the child participate in chunin exam. Hokage's office, the most central dome building in the entire Konoha village. A member of the Umbu kneels on one knee on the ground, speaking mechanically, reporting the latest news to the old man sitting at the desk, Lord Hokage. There is news from the second alert area. Intense vibrations were detected near Training Ground 9. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, wears his hat nonchalantly puffing on his pipe, looking down at a stack of papers in his hand. Seemingly unconcerned about the Umbu's report, casually remarks, I remember Training Ground 9 is allocated to the Umbu training class. Umbu Training Class, officially under the Umbu. However, most Umbu members are well aware that the training class is really the root, Danzo's organization, and in fact, the root has far exceeded the size of a single class. Yes, the Umbu ninja responded and continued reporting. From a distance, a force appeared in a short time at Training Ground 9. Oh! The third Hokage still has his pipe, still carefully flipping through the papers. This situation. Why does it sound familiar? Yes, the Umbu ninja quickly bowed his head to explain to his superior. Tenzo, who was recently transferred to the Umbu by the Lord Hokage, released a would-release jutsu called Deep Forest Emergence in the Umbu training ground, creating a sea of trees in a short time. It is initially suspected that someone used the same would-release jutsu at Training Ground 9. No need to look into it further. The third Hokage nodded, still unconcerned. Still reading a stack of papers. I've known about this. The matter of a would-release Kekiai Genkai ninja in the Umbu training class. Danzo has already informed me. Obviously, the third Hokage lied to his subordinate. After all, not long ago, he rallied the Umbu to surround the route, ready to suppress it at any moment, and snatched the would-release Kekiai Genkai ninja from under Danzo. Now that he knows there is another would-release Kekiai Genkai ninja under Danzo, is he going to mobilize the Umbu to surround the route again and snatch the second one? Such things can be done once, but not repeatedly, especially since the last time was recent. Doing the same thing to Danzo again in a short time would inevitably cause dissatisfaction and resentment. If the talent of the other would-release Kekiai Genkai ninja is good, he can find an opportunity to transfer him to the Umbu later. There is no need to provoke Danzo now. Konoha needs Danzo to handle some dirty work. The ninja world is still not peaceful, with major ninja villages still engaging in open and covert struggles, espionage, infiltration, assassination, and theft. These covert operations have never ceased. Inside the Konoha, there is unrest. The most powerful and ambitious clan, the Uchiha, is increasingly at odds with the village, and conflict could break out at any time. These matters all require Danzo's help to handle. But now, it's necessary to give Danzo a warning. Let him know that his every move is being watched. He must put away any improper thoughts now. He can't get emboldened by having another would-release ninja under his command to attempt another assassination incident like the one years ago. That old friend, narrow-minded yet timid as a mouse. Once a flaw is caught, he would be scared enough to scurry into the sewer. Enough. No need to speak of this further. What's most important now is the village's chunin exam in the latter half of the year. The third Hokage is still looking through the stack of papers in his hand, which are the registration forms for the Konoha village's chunin exam later in the year, the most important assessment in the entire village. The chunin exam is significant for selecting talents. The Konoha village has a large number of genin who maintain the village by taking on low-level ninja missions. They are an important support to the village's prosperity, yet they can only rely on C and D ranked ninja missions to sustain their lives. However, chunins are different. If a genin performs excellently in the chunin exam and is promoted by the village, it's akin to having a fixed job. Chunins can undertake lucrative B-rank combat missions, work in certain departments within the village, and even have the chance to enter the Umbu. The chunin exam is the highest level of standardized testing in Konoha. The Konoha holds 2 chunin exams each year, sometimes in collaboration with other small ninja villages. Without exception, the passing rate for each chunin exam is very low. Since the end of the Third Great Ninja War, the ninja world has entered an era of peace, and the chunin exam has gained new significance, becoming an important occasion to flaunt the power of the Konoha. The financial revenue of the Konoha village mainly comes from the daimyo of the Land of Fire and ninja missions. The daimyo of the Land of Fire often watches the chunin exam to decide whether to increase or decrease financial support. Other small village daimyos or nobles also come to determine whether to give high-level missions to the Konoha. Besides, of course, The most important thing is to deter and attract allies of the Konoha. Generally, small ninja villages are allies that the 5 great ninja villages seek to win over. These villages often compare the power of the big village to choose a stronger one to ally with. The chunin exam, undoubtedly, is the occasion where small ninja villages can most directly observe the power of the Konoha in peacetime, making it even more crucial for the Konoha to value the chunin exam. Are all the registration forms for the chunin exam here? The third Hokage slowly put down the pipe in his mouth and suddenly asked, "Did Uchiha Itachi apply to take the chunin exam alone?" "Yes." An Umbu ninja nodded and explained. "According to the information we gathered, 2 years ago, all of Itachi's teammates died in a mission. Since then, Uchiha Itachi has not formed a team again and has hardly taken on any commissioned missions. Naturally, he has no teammates to take the chunin exam with. However, during these 2 years, Uchiha Itachi has been training with Uchiha Shursui and even assisted Shursui in completing cooperation assessment tasks. Even though that assessment task was interrupted, we can still determine that he is an excellent ninja capable of completing the chunin exam alone. The only unfair part is the 3-person cooperative combat assessment. There have been many precedents in the village. For instance, when Team Kakashi's teammates, Uchiha Obito and Noira Rin, took the chunin exam, lacking a third for the cooperative combat assessment, Kakashi, who was already a chunin, was allowed to assist the 2 teammates in the final part of the exam. However, Uchiha Itachi's only teammate is Uchiha Shursui, involving the famously body flicker Shursui, a jonin, in the chunin exam is a bit ha ha ha. The third Hokage laughed heartily, interrupting his subordinate and waving his hand. That would be too much bullying of these kids and turn the exam into a joke. Yes, the Umbu ninja nodded, then looked up at the elder and continued. However, Uchiha Itachi is indeed capable of passing all the exams alone. As mentioned by Uchiha Shursui, all of Itachi's training scores are excellent. All right, let it be this way this time. The third Hokage nodded and seemed to say casually, "Kakashi, Tenzo, go to the Umbu training class and submit an application form." "Yes, Lord Hokage." 2 mass figures quickly stood up. The third Hokage looked at one of them, his eyes becoming somewhat sharp. "Go tell Danzo to also let the child with the wood release participate in the chunin exam." Chapter 13. Lord Danzo, may I kill them? The third Hokage is a political figure in the ninja world. Starting from receiving intelligence about a wood release ninja from the third Hokage, to how to make the most of this intelligence, it all took less than 20 minutes. Firstly, Uchiha Itachi participated in the chunin exam alone. Rationally and emotionally, the emergence of such a young genius is a blessing for Konoha. Unfortunately, Itachi was born into the Uchiha clan, which is currently the most unstable factor in Konoha, always having a rift with the village. If this 10-year-old genius passes the exam alone, it would undoubtedly make the already arrogant Uchiha clan even more haughty and dismissive of other Konoha ninjas, worsening the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village. However, at this time, a wood-release Kekkei Genkai ninja appeared in the village. Regardless of his current strength, he would be able to keep the Uchiha clan in check for some time. After all, during the Warring States period, the first Hokage of Konoha, Senja Hashirama, defeated and subdued the strongest leader of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Madara, with his would-release Kekkei Genkai, completely stopping the Uchiha clan's domination in the ninja world during that era. Most cleverly, this would-release Kekkei Genkai ninja just happens to be a subordinate of Shimura Danzo. The Uchiha clan's leader, Uchiha Fugaku, has always known that Shimura Danzo is the person in Konoha who is most hostile towards the Uchiha, constantly suppressing the clan's development. 6 years ago, during the Nine Tails disturbance, most of Konoha was destroyed, and in front of many clan heads of Konoha, Danzo relocated the Uchiha's living area to the edge of the village. Now, having a possible would-release Kekkei Genkai ninja who could suppress the Uchiha clan among Danzo's subordinates would definitely put pressure on Uchiha Fugaku. As the Hokage and highest leader, this provided a space for mediation. The third Hokage, having ruled Konoha for the longest time, is experienced and seemingly mild, yet maximizes benefits without needing harsh measures. Just the selection of the person sent by the third Hokage to deliver the exam application contains a strong warning signal, as Tenzo is the former would release Kekkei Genkai wielder of the root organization, and Kakashi is the one who guided Tenzo to leave the root organization, even causing a big disturbance in the root to rescue him. Undoubtedly, Danzo detests both of them. However, not long has passed since the last incident of the Umbu surrounding the root organization, and the current Danzo does not dare to act against the Hokage's messengers, only able to accept the warning from the third Hokage and reluctantly follow his commands. Off you go! The third Hokage arranged everything, waved Kakashi and Tenzo off to deliver items to the root organization, and planned to relax a bit by picking up his pipe again. The third Hokage glanced at the crystal ball on his desk and suddenly raised his head to look around, as if sensing something. The next moment, the old man couldn't help but laugh. It seems I am indeed getting old, feeling a bit off, to mysteriously sense Danzo watching me. Inside the Root's training ground, system prompt. New work task, according to the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen's request, to participate in Konoha's second half-year chunin exam. This work system can even accept tasks remotely. Indeed, any ninja within the Konoha system is nominally a subordinate of the third Hokage, and the Hokage doesn't even need to know who they are, and yet can request tasks from them. However, this Hokage's intuition is quite sharp, truly a peeping enthusiast. Wait, it should be said that you truly are a seasoned ninja. Inside the root organization's training ground, the young Akihara Kagura is somewhat amazed by the third Hokage's acuity and admires the usefulness of the ninja in the shadows trait provided by the system. This trait is so useful. It allows for gathering intelligence without exposing oneself. Even if someone sharp does feel spied upon, they only sense that they are being watched by Danzo. Akihara Kagura couldn't help but glance at Danzo beside him, feeling a bit sorry for him, estimating that he would have to make his superior take the blame for many things in the future. However, that's how it should be. If a superior can't take the blame for their subordinates, who would want to work for them? Akihara Kagura looked at Danzo beside him, thinking that Danzo, who has taken the blame for so many things in his life, surely wouldn't mind taking more for his subordinates, right, Lord Danzo? Shimura Danzo has no idea about his subordinates' thoughts, still obsessively thinking about how to conceal Akihara Kagura's existence, considering nurturing Akihara Kagura well to give a big surprise to Sarutobi Hiruzen in the future. Tomorrow I will teach you a new ninjutsu. Shimura Danzo is still immersed in the joy of having gained a powerful fighter, already planning to arrange Akihara Kagura's life, thinking of ways to make this child forever loyal to him. Yes, Lord Danzo. Akihara Kagura quickly nodded, hoping that Lord Danzo's mood remains as good later. Not much time has passed. Inside the root organization's base, when Danzo returned with Akihara Kagura, they were confronted by two familiar Umbu ninjas being stopped at the base's entrance. Hataki Kakashi. Shimura Danzo saw one of the silver-haired Umbu ninjas. His expression immediately turned exceptionally cold. You dare to come here. However, when Danzo saw the other Umbu ninja, his tone of voice became gloomier. Humph, you dare to come here too. Lord Danzo. This Umbu ninja clearly is an honest person. When he saw Danzo, he seemed somewhat ashamed and lowered his head. Tenzo, we are here to convey the orders of Lord Hokage. Kakashi had long known that his teammate would have difficulty facing Danzo. He quickly intercepted in front of his teammate and coldly said, Lord Hokage's order is for the child with the wood-release Kekkei Genkai to participate in the chunin exams later this year. After Kakashi finished speaking, his gaze swiftly moved to the young man next to Danzo. I suppose Lord Hokage is referring to this child? There was quite a commotion earlier at Training Ground 9. Shimura Danzo couldn't refute. The old man felt somewhat uneasy. He wondered if Sarutobi Hiruzen, the damn fool, was trying to take away Akahara Kagura again. This child's talent was even more terrifying than the traitor who changed his name to Tenzo. How could he stand a chance then? Shimura Danzo wished he could immediately kill both Kakashi and Tenzo in front of him, and then lead the Root Organization to storm the Hokage building and kill Sarutobi Hiruzen in frustration. However, rebellion was a bit difficult. He vividly remembered the last time Sarutobi Hiruzen led a group of Umbu to surround the entire base of the Root Organization. A single command could take down both Shimura Danzo and the Root Organization. Kakashi took out a prepared registration form and handed it to the young man, softly saying, "This is your registration form for the chunin exam." Akahara Kagura stared at Kakashi without saying anything. "Take it," Kakashi urged, somewhat indifferently. "You are a ninja of Konoha. You must obey Lord Hokage's orders." "I will only obey Lord Danzo's orders." Suddenly, Akahara Kagura turned to look at Shimura Danzo and asked, "Lord Danzo, if they have upset you, may I kill them?" Chapter 14. The subordinate is too loyal that the boss is a bit afraid. Akahara Kagura is a very sensible person. Kakashi and Tenzo appeared threatening, obviously making Danzo lose face and feel aggrieved. He had to stand up and say something. If your superior loses face in front of others as a subordinate, you must not ignore it. You must find a way to help your superior regain face. Only in this way, your superior might be truly loyal to you. This is also a workplace rule. Kakashi's gaze sharpened as he looked at Akahara Kagura, who was seriously talking about wanting to kill someone. He couldn't help but feel a complex emotion swirling inside. This kid has already been brainwashed by Danzo. Shimura Danzo looked at Akahara Kagura with a hint of appreciation in his eyes and didn't mind his rebellious words against the Hokage. Whether it's the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen or the members of the Umbu, most know that the Root Organization is Shimura Danzo's private army. Saying such things here didn't matter. Just don't talk nonsense in the village in the future. Hey, don't talk nonsense. Shimura Danzo gently scolded, speaking disdainfully. Since the Hokage has ordered you to participate in the chunin exams, follow the Hokage's orders and take the registration form from Kakashi. This familiar code name. Kakashi and Tenzo were stunned. Akahara Kagura took the exam registration form from Kakashi and, seeing the two stunned people, curiously asked, "Is there something wrong with my name?" After speaking, the boy seemed to remember something and added, "However, this is a name given to me by Lord Danzo, and only he can call me that." What a good child. Shimura Danzo narrowed his eyes and patted the boy's head. Although he felt something was a bit off, it also didn't seem entirely wrong. Shouldn't one trust a child when he claims loyalty? Besides, when the child spoke these words, his childish naivety made everyone present sense the respect and affection he had for Danzo. This child seems to have been overly brainwashed by Danzo. Wait, did the monkey only send one registration form? Shimura Danzo suddenly looked at Kakashi, asking, "I remember the chunin exams require a 3-person team to participate. Which class is the monkey planning to arrange for him to join for the chunin exams?" Sure enough, he knew that monkey was up to no good. What participating in the chunin exam is all a sham. The real purpose is to snatch this child away from me. As long as Hiruzen uses the pretext of the chunin exam to place this child in any class, will I ever be able to take this child back? Lord Hokage's intentions. We are not clear on that. Kakashi stood beside, shaking his head, and slowly replied, "If Lord Danzo has any more doubts, he can ask the Lord Hokage." I will ask. Shimura Danzo snorted coldly. Akahara Kagura couldn't help but glance at Kakashi. This guy is somewhat dishonest. How can he pass the problem to his superior? As a subordinate, one should proactively solve problems for their superior. If the superior has no problems, then help the superior create problems. Lord Danzo, Akihara Kagura quickly created a new problem for his superior. If during the exam, I am assigned to a class and I don't like my weak teammates, can I kill them first? You may. Shimura Danzo had no psychological burden about this. After all, Danzo has always dreamed of killing his old teammates. If this child kills the teammates arranged by Hiruzen during the chunin exam, it means the child is not a team player, and he could logically take the child back. Kakashi's gaze narrowed. Although he knew that this kid couldn't possibly know about his affairs, nor was he mocking him, a hint of pain still flickered in Kakashi's eyes. To kill one's own teammates. How desperate must one be to resort to such an act? A person who has personally killed his own teammates will never be able to escape that nightmare. Has this kid, who speaks of killing teammates so lightly, been turned into a completely ruthless killing machine by Shimura Danzo? All right, Kakashi didn't want to stay any longer, and immediately spoke to take leave. Since Lord Danzo has taken the order, we will go back and report to Lord Hokage. No need to see you out. Shimura Danzo made no move, not even giving a proper look. Goodbye. Akihara Kagura watched the two leaving, his childish voice echoing in the underground base of the root organization. Next time we meet, don't be disrespectful to Lord Danzo. Show some respect. Kakashi and Tenzo remained silent, walking towards the exit on their own. Just as Kakashi was about to leave with Tenzo, he suddenly paused, turned his head back to look at the young boy, and seemed to say unintentionally, "Hey, this name, Lord Danzo, seems to have allowed others to use it too. Kakashi-senpai?" Tenzo stood by, not daring to speak. The base of the root was silent. Kakashi was really up to no good. Before leaving, a casual remark from him made Akihara Kagura feel a bit troubled. He wondered whether to get angry and act spoiled towards Danzo or pretend not to hear it at all. It seemed neither was appropriate. The only appropriate. I've heard about it. The young Akihara Kagura looked at the two figures standing at the end of the corridor, his childish voice still filled with bloodthirst. The last guy called a betrayed Lord Danzo, and I will find an opportunity to kill that traitor. I am the only one. Kakashi was silent for a while, then shook his head and said, "There's no need for that. That person is no longer a. Tenzo, let's go." Kakashi no longer said anything, leaping towards the exit. Tenzo looked back at the old man and the young boy and followed suit. Humph. Shimura Danzo snorted coldly. After seeing them leave, he then spoke. "Remember, A. Kakashi was the instigator who lured the previous A to defect, and Tenzo is the traitor who betrayed the root." "What? Lord Danzo! I should have killed them just now." The young boy's eyes widened in disbelief, looking at the old man and then turning to run towards the exit. "I'm going to kill them." "Stop!" Shimura Danzo sternly stopped him, saying in a deep voice, "Don't be impulsive. If you encounter them outside the village in the future, find a chance to kill them secretly. Inside the village, without my order, don't lay a hand on anyone." Danzo finally realized something was wrong. In the past, he could easily mock Kakashi and Tenzo. Now he dared not say much more, as Akihara Kagura would probably take action immediately after hearing it, causing a huge mess. Luckily, he didn't say it. Luckily, he stopped the boy. This subordinate was too loyal, so much so that even Danzo himself was a bit afraid. Chapter 15. Danzo, I am the Hokage. Akihara Kagura is a bit abnormal. Shimura Danzo never thought raising children could be so difficult. After all, his way of raising children has always been to put a bunch of mentally normal kids together, let them grow up together, and then let them fight and kill each other to transform into somewhat abnormal killers. Now, facing an overly abnormal child, Shimura Danzo suddenly feels it's a bit tricky, fearing the child might cause some trouble. But Shimura Danzo couldn't criticize, because the child is always protecting him. "I need to go out." After pondering for a while, Shimura Danzo decides to go to the Hokage building first to gauge Hiruzen's intentions. He looks at Akahara Kagura. You rest at the base? The young man seems surprised and can't help but look up at the old man. Lord Danzo, didn't you say I was to be your guard? I can definitely ensure your safety. Follow the order. Shimura Danzo appreciates the child's loyalty. However, the old man still vetoed the young man's suggestion with a single sentence. Shimura Danzo knows that if he goes to the Hokage building, there's a high chance he'll end up arguing with Hiruzen. He's a bit afraid the child might attack the Hokage right there. Hokage building. Shimura Danzo hurried here, mainly to find out about Hiruzen's coveting of Akahara Kagura, so he could prepare in advance. If Hiruzen really plans to take Akahara Kagura away during the chunin exams, then Shimura Danzo can only endure. Of course, he'll definitely have a good fight with him. However, Hiruzen understands his old friend very well. When he saw Shimura Danzo walk into the Hokage's office, he directly handed Danzo a list of participants for the chunin exam. What's this? Shimura Danzo took the list, glanced over it, and his eyes landed on a name. Uchiha Itachi? Participating in the chunin exam alone. That name. It has been well known to Shimura Danzo for a long time. After all, Uchiha Itachi graduated from the Ninja Academy early, and is known as the most talented child of the peaceful era, undoubtedly attracting much attention. Especially since Uchiha Itachi once had a conflict with the Root organization, easily defeating a member of Root, which left a deep impression on Shimura Danzo. At that time, Uchiha Itachi was only 8 years old. Now, the 10-year-old Uchiha Itachi has undoubtedly become even more outstanding. Danzo quickly calmed down and entered work mode. I've heard of this kid. It wouldn't be difficult for him to pass the exam alone with his abilities. But this child is an Uchiha. If he passes a chunin exam alone, it would be unprecedented in Konoha and the Uchiha clan. Danzo. Hiruzen interrupted Danzo, leisurely picking up his pipe. We should not hold malice toward someone just because of their surname. But, nor can we ignore the significance behind this surname. Hiruzen never plainly stated anything, simply walking over to the window, gazing deeply at Konoha. The village is becoming less peaceful. Conflicts between the Uchiha and the villagers are increasing, and relations with the village are becoming more tense. Humph! They should have been dealt with long ago. Danzo scoffed, disdainful of his old friend's soft-heartedness. What you should do is carry out the teacher's will. Completely eradicate the evil Uchiha. Danzo. Hiruzen's voice immediately became stern, sharply saying, The Uchiha are also members of Konoha. Among them are ninjas who carry the will of fire. Have you forgotten his name? Because it's been too long since Kagami died. Uchiha Kagami. He was once their teammate, even helping them out of crises multiple times, recognized by everyone as an excellent Konoha ninja. Even the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama, who was quite hostile to the Uchiha, had to admit Kagami's excellence, believing he had transcended the narrow mindset of his clan. Unfortunately, Uchiha Kagami died young. Even though Kagami has been dead for many years, his will continues to influence the Uchiha clan, and his descendants, like him, remain loyal to the village. The current top Uchiha, Uchiha Shursui, is a descendant of Kagami, and like his forebear, he's trying to ease the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha, spreading the will of fire within the Uchiha clan. Hearing Hiruzen mention the old friend, Danzo fell silent. Even he couldn't forget the old friend who had saved him many times. After a long time, Danzo still did not choose to change his attitude. Kagami, after all, they are only a minority. You should have understood one thing a long time ago. The village cannot afford the risk of the Uchiha starting a rebellion. Just because a small flame can warm you, ignoring the danger of a wildfire outbreak is not a decision a Hokage should make. You have become weak. Hiruzen, you will regret this. Danzo, I am the Hokage. Hiruzen turned his head back coldly, looking at his loyal advisor who seemed earnestly advising him, and calmly said, "Even if there's a sliver of hope for a peaceful resolution to the conflict, it should not be given up. Now, what you should do is follow orders." Humph. What orders? Doesn't the root have a would-release Kekkei Genkai ninja? Hiruzen's gaze became sharp, staring firmly at his old friend, and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. It's just to let him participate in the chunin exams. I won't remove him from the root." Humph. Danzo snorted, but his face relaxed. Originally, Danzo was somewhat annoyed at Hiruzen's weak attitude towards the Uchiha. Now knowing that Hiruzen's attitude towards his privately kept would-release Kekkei Genkai ninja was also weak. Actually, this old friend's kindness and softness are not bad at times. Danzo confirmed that he could still keep Akahara Kagura, the would-release Kekkei Genkai user, under his command, and his mood suddenly brightened, feeling that the future was full of hope again. I understand. Danzo was very satisfied with his trip and proactively planned. I will teach him well, let him participate in the chunin exams by himself, not letting Uchiha Itachi that kid stand out too much in the chunin exams, and also make those Uchiha behave a little. You arrange it as you see fit. Hiruzen neither nodded nor shook his head, nor said anything more, as if he had not said anything just now. Then I'll take my leave first. Shimura Danzo, leaning on his cane, was about to leave. "Wait!" Hiruzen suddenly called out to him, calmly asking, "That child with the would-release Kekkei Genkai, when exactly did he appear? Are people still conducting forbidden Hashirama cell transplantation experiments in the village? Or is it Orochimaru's doing?" "He's a child from the orphanage." Danzo's eyes involuntarily widened, but he still forcibly maintained his composure and replied, "That child had awakened his would-release long ago. I've been keeping him at the root base for training." "Oh." Hiruzen seemed to believe this explanation and sighed softly. "Then teach that child well. Teach him to protect the Konoha, and don't let that child go down the wrong path." Chapter 16. Akahara Kagura's New Life. Shimura Danzo looked back at the Hokage building. This Hokage building was the dream of Danzo's life. The owner of this Hokage building, with a casual word, could make him sweat profusely, not because he was better than Danzo. It was simply because he was the Hokage. Sarutobi Hiruzen reminded himself not to let that child go astray. That old bastard was hinting at him. Shimura Danzo understood the hidden meaning. Sarutobi Hiruzen's reminder was for Danzo himself not to go astray, not to harbor inappropriate thoughts about the position of the Hokage just because he had would-release Kekkei Genkai ninja in the root organization. But how could one give up on their dreams? Just by becoming the owner of this Hokage building. A single command could change the fate of the entire Konoha and even the whole ninja world. One day, Shimura Danzo left in a huff, realizing it was better to return and properly guide Akahara Kagura rather than continue staring at the Hokage building to quench his thirst. Humph! Not to let that child take the wrong path. How could the child go wrong following me? Hiruzen, everyone has their own path. It's not only your path that is the right one. At the root organization's base, Akahara Kagura was still somewhat dejected. Shimura Danzo forbade him from going out, ordering him to rest at the root organization's base without any system tasks. It seemed that the system's assignment of work tasks was not so hasty. He still needed to figure it out on his own. Or rest can't be considered work. Doesn't a break during work count as being on the job? Slacking off is clearly part of work too, especially when it's a rest demanded by a superior. But a new opportunity soon arrived. Shimura Danzo returned to the root organization's base and finally issued an official order to Akahara Kagura, also successfully triggering a system task for him. "From today, I will personally train you to ensure that you can defeat that brat Uchiha Itachi in the chunin exam." Humph. That brat gave me a bit of trouble. System prompt. New work task. Follow Shimura Danzo's instructions. Participate in Konoha's second half of the year chunin exam and defeat Uchiha Itachi in the exam. A task, and he get double the reward? Akihara Kagura's expression immediately became solemn. I will definitely do it. Akihara Kagura looked at Shimura Danzo and asked again, Lord Danzo, is it permissible to kill during the chunin exam? Can I kill that guy named Uchiha Itachi? Shimura Danzo was somewhat at a loss for words. This kid's personality is too extreme. Uchiha Itachi is the son of Uchiha Fugaku, the head of the Uchiha clan, one of the strongest clans in Konoha. He has always been Fugaku's pride, and had even activated the Sharingan, a Kekkei Genkai of the Uchiha clan, at an early age. If Akihara Kagura were to kill Uchiha Itachi, it would definitely cause dissatisfaction among many, and might even exacerbate the conflict between Konoha and the Uchiha clan. But Hiruzen is a weak person. If, in order to appease Uchiha Fugaku's anger, monkey-handed over Akihara Kagura to Fugaku, that would be disastrous. Such incidents have happened before. A few years ago, envoys from Cloud came to Konoha under the guise of renegotiating a ceasefire, but secretly they intended to steal the Byakugan Kekkei Genkai of the Hyuga clan. The Cloud envoys sneaked into the Hyuga clan to kidnap the daughter of the clan head, but were discovered by the clan head, Hyuga Hayashi, facing thieves who wanted to steal his daughter. Hayashi naturally showed no mercy and killed the Cloud envoy on the spot. Cloud, however, denied any wrongdoing and instead accused Konoha of murder, threatening to start a war unless the murder was handed over. Then, the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, agreed to this humiliating demand, ordering the Hyuga clan to hand over the person who killed the Cloud envoy, seeking peace at all costs. In the end, Hayashi's twin brother, Hyuga Hizashi, took the blame for his brother and was forced to commit suicide, ending the incident with Cloud Village in such a ridiculous and humiliating manner. Learning from past events. According to Shimura Danzo's understanding of his old friend, if Akihara Kagura accidentally killed Uchiha Itachi, that monkey would likely hand over a child from the root organization to appease Uchiha Fugaku's anger. If such a thing really happened, losing a genius from the rebellious Uchiha clan and a genius from the root would not affect Hiruzen. Why wouldn't he do it? As for whether Akihara Kagura can defeat Uchiha Itachi, Danzo suddenly realized that he had never considered this question. Uchiha Itachi could easily defeat members of the root. Although Danzo had confidence in Akihara Kagura's would release talent, with techniques like the advent of a world of flowering trees not something an ordinary ninja could counter, but Kagura, who always seemed thoughtless, could easily be manipulated by Uchiha. Never underestimate Uchiha Itachi. Shimura Danzo spoke in a cold voice to remind, then continued. The chunin exam does not prohibit killing the enemy, but we can't just kill at will. After Shimura Danzo finished speaking, he couldn't help frowning. How could such weak words come from his own mouth? Oh, Akihara Kagura also felt something was strange. Anyway, Shimura Danzo, looking at Akihara Kagura, commanded in a deep voice, There's no need to kill Uchiha Itachi. That kid is still of some use to us. Yes, I understand. Akihara Kagura didn't care about these things. All along, Akihara Kagura was not a bloodthirsty person. Every time Akihara Kagura actively offered to kill for Shimura Danzo, whether it was to kill Ataki Kakashi or Uchiha Itachi, it was just to make Shimura Danzo happy and said casually, Danzo definitely wouldn't dare let him do it. If Shimura Danzo really wanted to think deeply, he would realize that in the root organization's base, Akihara Kagura had always been all talk, never actually doing anything for him. However, even if Shimura Danzo thought deeply, given Akihara Kagura's attitude in speaking, he might be even more afraid of Akihara Kagura doing something for him. There's one more thing. Remember your origins. You are a child who grew up in Konoha. The dean of the Konoha orphanage, Yakushi Nono, took you in your early years. It was I who brought you to the root and raised you. It was I who conducted the Hashirama cell transplant experiment on you when you were young, completely forgetting Orochimaru's existence. Akihara Kagura silently nodded, still sticking to his persona. Lord Danzo, can I go kill the dean of that orphanage? To prevent her from talking nonsense in the future and revealing flaws, causing trouble for you. Don't always think about killing. Yakushi no is still useful now. Shimura Danzo felt something was off again. Chapter 17, Kabuto, Training Ground 9. Shimura Danzo remained confident. However, Danzo soon realized a potential problem. He might face difficulties while teaching Akihara Kagura the would-release ninjutsu. After all, the powerful would-release jutsus Danzo had encountered were mostly derived from the jutsus written by the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, in the Scroll of Seals. But there was a significant issue. When Hashirama performed his ninjutsu, many jutsus only required forming a single specific hand seal, the serpent/snake, or didn't need any hand seals at all. What to do now? It seemed like he could only provide Akihara Kagura with the name of the jutsu. Danzo remained very calm. He calmly formed the serpent hand seal. Danzo calmly began instructing Akihara Kagura. This ninjutsu is also one of the first Hokages would release jutsus. It also requires just the serpent hand seal and directly activating your chakra. Danzo calmly added details from the scroll. The effect of this jutsu is to transform the trees in the forest into a huge wooden dragon using the chakra within your body. Would release, would dragon jutsu. Danzo declared the name of the jutsu in a deep voice. Akihara Kagura was completely overwhelmed. What was this all about? Was there any difference from when he was taught would release? Advent of a world of flowering trees. The same hand seal, the same teaching method, just a different name for two different ninjutsu? Danzo, perhaps feeling a bit embarrassed, didn't directly ask Akihara Kagura if he had learned it, but offered some comforting words to the young boy. It's okay if you don't get it right away. Danzo appeared very composed and spoke softly. This jutsu is harder than Advent of a world of flowering trees. You need to practice it slowly on your own. Yes. Akihara Kagura hesitated, finding it difficult to speak. This is not a matter of whether the jutsu is difficult or not. It's your teaching method, Lord Danzo, that's problematic, isn't it? However, this bizarre teaching method was actually recognized by the system. System prompt, Ninja Professor, trait activated. The host possesses would release Kekkei Genkai, chakra level at SSS grade, and is learning would release, would dragon jutsu, which is consistent with ninja theory. Would release, would dragon jutsu successfully learned. System prompt, you have learned a new skill, would release, would dragon jutsu, would release, would dragon jutsu, would release Kekkei Genkai's secret jutsu. The user uses their chakra as a life source to transfer chakra to the seeds of trees. Dense trees form a giant wooden dragon with spikes all over its body. It can entangle enemies with a very strong binding force. Enemies entangled by the wooden dragon will have their chakra absorbed. Although, I have a learning cheat. But, isn't it a bit inappropriate to say that I've learned it just like that? After all, there are serious issues with Shimura Danzo's teaching method. If I can learn the wood dragon jutsu, it will definitely arouse Danzo's suspicion. I'll give it a try. Akihara Kagura raised his finger and asked softly, Lord Danzo, is there a difference in the chakra activation method between the wood dragon jutsu and the advent of a world of flowering trees? Shimura Danzo fell silent, thinking about how to answer. After all, he neither possesses the wood-release Kekkei Genkai, nor knows these two would-release jutsus. Akihara Kagura sensed that his question had put his superior in a difficult position, and immediately thought of a way to remedy it. The best way was undoubtedly to provide his superior with an easy way out. Akihara Kagura thought for less than 3 seconds, immediately corrected his question, and gave his superior a way out. Lord Danzo, the wood dragon jutsu might be a bit difficult for me. Are there any other would-release jutsus? There are. Shimura Danzo seemed to have found a way to step down. Shimura Danzo immediately regained his confidence and said slowly, "Then I will teach you another would-release jutsu, also created by the first Hokage." As Shimura Danzo spoke, he subconsciously began to form seals according to what he had read in the Scroll of Seals, still the same snake hand seal. Shimura Danzo's fingers stiffened. Even Shimura Danzo felt that his teaching method was somewhat excessive. Shimura Danzo indifferently retracted his finger and scolded, "Practice well during this time. First master the wood dragon jutsu I taught you, then I will teach you new jutsus." Akihara Kagura's expression suddenly turned bizarre. This is teaching loneliness. He didn't care about such an awkward way of teaching, so why was Shimura Danzo embarrassed? After one night, Shimura Danzo's work suddenly became very busy. Previously, Shimura Danzo had said he would personally train Akihara Kagura, but now he started to make excuses and let Akihara Kagura practice ninjutsu on his own. After all, Shimura Danzo also knew that his way of teaching was a bit outrageous. Shimura Danzo didn't expect Akihara Kagura to learn much with his outrageous teaching method, but just had the members of the root organization take turns monitoring him to prevent laziness. For the time being, Shimura Danzo didn't want to meet Akihara Kagura, to avoid the kid asking more questions about would-release ninjutsu. Until the next time, he would read the Scroll of Seals again, and then answer the child's questions. This kind of avoidance of subordinates' questions by a superior is not good for Akihara Kagura. If the superior and subordinate don't meet, it can easily lead to a crisis of trust. But this was an opportunity for Akihara Kagura. Perhaps he could use the excuse of not being able to learn the wood dragon jutsu to get Shimura Danzo to help find the Scroll of Seals. Naturally, this situation was not friendly to the members of the root organization. With Shimura Danzo absent, Akihara Kagura was unrestrained. The boy only obeyed Lord Danzo's orders and didn't allow other members of the root organization to call him by his name. Those who dared to refer to Akihara Kagura as A would be hung up on a tree. This became a turn of suffering, until a spy, who had just returned to the root organization's base to report, was ordered by a senior member to take on this difficult task. To go to Training Ground 9 and supervise AS training. Training Ground 9. The ancient forest still stood on this land. There seemed to be something strange moving in the forest, as if one could always feel the terror that could engulf a person, and a young man wearing glasses cautiously entered the forest. Whoosh! A branch suddenly sprang out. The young man quickly twisted and turned, trying to dodge the attack of the branch, while shouting, I am here on orders." The attack of the branch paused. The next moment, countless branches and roots sprang out. The young man was instantly tied up and hung upside down on the tree. A teenager's figure leisurely walked out, calmly approached him, grabbed his head, and asked, "Who told you to use the name given to me by Lord Danzo? How should I address you, then?" This bespectacled young man was somewhat slick. "Call me Lord Kagura." The teenager seemed not to care at all about the root's prohibition and continued to ask, "What's your name? Why have I never seen you at the base?" Kabuto. The bespectacled young man calmly stated his full name. Yakushi Kabuto, Chapter 18. I'm also adopted by the dean. Yakushi Kabuto. This name sounds familiar. Akihara Kagura spoke while waving his hand. In this forest, the large trees are controlled by Akihara Kagura's chakra. The branches that bound the bespectacled young man slowly loosened, carefully placing him on the ground. "Thank you." Yakushi Kabuto sincerely thanked him before asking, "I remember, the root members are not allowed to use their own names, only code names." "That's what Lord Danzo calls me." Akihara Kagura interrupted him, speaking indifferently. "I guess it's probably because Lord Danzo is old and can't remember so many names. Besides, aren't you also using your own name?" "We are different." Yakushi Kabuto slowly shook his head. Being a spy for years, he didn't need to forget his own name. Having a special code name even made it possible for others to trace his identity. Your name is Yakushi Kabuto, right? I remember there's an orphanage dean named Yakushi Nono. Akihara Kagura controlled a large tree to make a swing for himself and sat on it leisurely, knowingly asking, "What's your relationship with Yakushi Nono?" The dean, after hesitating for a second, Yakushi Kabuto thought it was harmless for Akihara Kagura to know this and explained, "Yakushi Nono is the dean of the orphanage that took me in. That's quite a coincidence." Akihara Kagura nodded and started to make up stories. "I was also adopted by Dean Yakushi Nono. Were you also raised by Lord Danzo after being adopted by her?" "Yes." Yakushi Kabuto slowly lowered his head. If being raised as a spy since childhood, being ordered to roam various countries to gather intelligence, counts as being raised, is this young man who calls himself Lord Kagura also an orphan adopted and forced into servitude by Danzo, nearly forgetting the dean who adopted him? Indeed, not everyone remembers their childhood, especially for an organization as cold-blooded and ruthless as the Root. Yakushi Kabuto lifted his palm and pushed up the glasses on his nose. He had always been able to live strongly because of these glasses that had always been with him, a gift from the dean of the orphanage, Yakushi Nono. For Kabuto, the warmest period of his life was at the Konoha orphanage, where he met the warmest person in his life, who treated him like a mother. His name is life. Everything came from the dean. We were all adopted by Dean Yakushi Nono. Akihara Kagura seemed quite satisfied with their meeting and pondered for a while before asking curiously, "We were all raised by Lord Danzo, yet we never met each other, because we had our own missions to execute." After this response, Kabuto continued, "Meeting this time was just a coincidence, and perhaps in the future, we may not have the chance to see each other again." "Yeah." Akihara Kagura also sighed, his expression somewhat helpless. "Lord Danzo is about to send me on a mission too." "Oh." Kabuto unconsciously showed a look of surprise. As if unconcerned, he asked, "Is there anything I can help with?" As a spy, Kabuto instinctively wanted to gather intelligence, especially since Akihara Kagura in front of him didn't seem like an ordinary child. This boy, if he wasn't mistaken, could he actually use the wood-release Kekkei Genkai? "First, I have to participate in the chunin exams." Akihara Kagura was indifferent to the information he might reveal, even voluntarily disclosing more. "After passing the chunin exams, I will go on a dangerous mission. Given the power of wood-release I possess, Danzo will certainly not assign me ordinary tasks, and there's a high probability I will die during the mission. Perhaps we really won't see each other again." After saying this, Akihara Kagura looked at Kabuto. "If you're still alive, when you see the dean in the future, tell her for me that the happiest day was when she adopted me and took me back to the orphanage. I have never forgotten that." Yakushi Kabuto suddenly fell silent. The words spoken by the young man were also what he wanted to say. "I'm sorry." Akihara Kagura looked at Kabuto, his expression somewhat forlorn. "Since I was young, I was taught to carry out the will of the Root, not to think about the people of the past, not to use my own past name, and not even to keep a photo of the dean. I've almost forgotten what she looks like." "It's okay. The dean definitely won't blame you." Kabuto took out a photo from his pocket and comforted, "I just happen to have a photo of the dean here. You can take a look." It was a photo wrapped in plastic. The plastic was a bit worn, but the photo inside still looked brand new, showing that its owner had taken good care of it. In the photo was a blonde woman with glasses, smiling as if she had encountered something that made her happy, her smile almost making her eyes invisible. "Thank you." Akihara Kagura slowly lowered his head. "You're welcome." Kabuto patted his shoulder and said softly, "Unfortunately, I only have one photo. If you're not in a hurry, maybe I can help you make another copy." "Thank you. When the time comes, I will also give you one of my photos." Akihara Kagura, with his head lowered, thanked Kabuto, whispering, "If one day I die and you are still alive, remember to give my photo to the dean too." Akahara Kagura took a deep breath and continued. Let her see what I look like when I grow up, and tell the dean for me that I joined the route voluntarily, at least to make life better for everyone at the orphanage. I have never blamed her. She won't blame you. Kabuto quickly shook his head, these words seemingly his own as well. He hurriedly defended the kind and motherly dean. She definitely won't blame you. How could the dean blame us? Kabuto, as if remembering something, took out a photo of himself from his pocket and handed it to Akahara Kagura. This is my photo. If one day I die while on a mission and you are still alive, please also convey this to the dean. I understand what you mean. Akahara Kagura quickly took the photo. Kabuto felt something was a bit strange. Right. After Akahara Kagura put away the photo, he spoke up to remind, don't let others know about this. The will of the root does not allow us. Hey! Suddenly, a voice interrupted their conversation. A root ninja walked into the forest, glanced at Akahara Kagura sitting on the swing, and then at Yakushi Kabuto standing beside. Hey, Lord Danzo, who allowed you to call me by that name? Akahara Kagura abruptly raised his finger, and numerous vines and tree roots emerged from the ground, tying up the root ninja and hanging him from the tree. How many times have I said, what should you call me? Lord Kagura, the root ninja called out somewhat humiliatedly and continued. Lord Danzo has summoned you and Kabuto to his office immediately. How do I know if what you're saying is true? Akihara Kagura snorted coldly, then turned to look at the somewhat astonished Kabuto. These guys always like to issue orders in the name of Lord Danzo. They must have forced you to come train with me, right? Don't be afraid. I'll go back and teach them a lesson for you. Kabuto felt uneasy. Kabuto thought about the root base, wondering why a group of root ninjas kept shirking responsibility and didn't want to train with this guy. This young man, it seems, isn't having such a bad time in the root organization. Chapter 19. Who bully whom? Kabuto was somewhat puzzled. After all, he had never seen such an arrogant root ninja before. Akahara Kagura was really a bit surprising. He had just been saying that he had to obey the will of the root. But why did his actions seem to completely disregard the will of the root? On one hand, he spoke of being forced to forget his name within the root organization. On the other hand, because a root ninja addressed him by his code name instead of his real name, he simply and decisively attacked his colleague. Lord Kagura, Kabuto hesitated but still respectfully addressed him, cautiously asking, How is your life at the root? Okay? It's okay. Akahara Kagura felt that his life was all right. Akahara Kagura had been in the root base for nearly half a month, and basically, there were no mistakes, and he got along well with his colleagues. Even if Akahara Kagura made a little mistake, the other root ninjas didn't really have the standing to tattle to Shimura Danzo in front of him, or to put it another way, tattling to Shimura Danzo was useless, and Danzo wouldn't scold Kagura for such a trivial matter. After all, Akihara Kagura spoke up for the sake of Lord Danzo. Of course, Akihara Kagura was doing okay. The other members were not doing so well. A few days ago, finally, a root ninja made a complaint, claiming that Akihara Kagura refused to obey their orders, had an extremely arrogant attitude when receiving orders, and even questioned whether the root members were conveying false orders. As a result, Akihara Kagura became even more arrogant. What if you are conveying orders in Lord Danzo's name falsely? I will only listen to Lord Danzo. It must be an order that I see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears directly from Lord Danzo. Shimura Danzo was indeed a bit uncomfortable. However, most members of the root wouldn't lie to Shimura Danzo, so they expressed Akihara Kagura's attitude of being loyal only to Shimura Danzo truthfully. Loyalty spoken by others is obviously more credible than loyalty spoken by oneself, which made Shimura Danzo feel that it wasn't so bad after all. Akihara Kagura is just a child with a stubborn personality. He doesn't have high demands, just hoping to personally execute the orders he gives. But if this child only listens to himself, It seems that this can also prevent the risk of this exceptionally talented would release ninja being deceived and betraying himself, turning him into a blade that belongs only to him. So, Shimura Danzo gradually acquiesced to all this. Who would refuse a person who only wants to be loyal to themselves? Let's go. Let's meet Lord Danzo. Akahara Kagura looked at the root ninja who was hung up. If I find out you're lying, I will execute you immediately. How dare I forge Lord Danzo's orders? This root ninja felt humiliated and somewhat annoyed. Never doubt the will of the root, nor doubt our loyalty to Lord Danzo, kid. It's not only you who is loyally devoted to Lord Danzo. I know, but I still don't believe it. Akahara Kagura interrupted him, saying carelessly, "You're all just a bunch of guys who bother Lord Danzo, only reporting trivial conflicts among us to him. This root ninja felt infuriated. For a long time, the root ninjas thought they had been very tolerant of this kid, but this kid kept provoking their already insensitive nerves. Kabuto stood by, somewhat stunned. This boy seemed just like him, a forced orphan recruit into the root organization. But how could he treat his colleagues in the root organization so arrogantly? However, Kabuto quickly realized he was still too young. At the root base, when Akahara Kagura returned with Kabuto, 2 guards stationed at the entrance of the base coldly turned their faces away, seemingly unwilling to pay attention to Akahara Kagura. "Do you recognize him?" Akahara Kagura stopped at the entrance, pointing to Kabuto beside him. The 2 gatekeepers still did not want to pay attention to him. Akahara Kagura didn't mind the attitude of these 2 people and continued indifferently. "Notify everyone from now on, no one is allowed to bully him. Understood?" The 2 gatekeepers still responded in a muffled voice. Kabuto was somewhat at a loss and spoke softly. "Actually, it's not like anyone bullied me. I've always been out on missions." "You don't understand." Akahara Kagura, acting as if he knew very well, started to criticize his colleagues. "These guys just think about suppressing and bullying their colleagues. If you resist them, they will snitch on you to Lord Danzo. They are all utterly despicable." The 2 gatekeepers couldn't help but want to curse. What nonsense is this kid talking about? Isn't it the other way around? Who has been bullying whom all this time? How many people in the root organization have not been deliberately bullied by this kid? I see they don't seem to dare to bully you. Kabuto, looking at the 2 gatekeepers trembling with anger due to Akahara Kagura, curiously asked, "How did you manage to make them not dare to bully you?" "Very simple." Akahara Kagura looked at the 2 gatekeepers, his face showing a smug expression. "As long as you bully them first, they won't dare to bully you." What a ridiculous method. Kabuto felt completely overwhelmed. However, it seems that Akahara Kagura's method really works a bit. Every root ninja they pass by subconsciously avoids them. Do you know Kabuto? Akahara Kagura even provokes actively in front of these root ninjas, acting as if Kabuto is his man. Come over and take a look. Remember this, and don't bully him in the future. Akahara Kagura even grabbed a root ninja who didn't want to look at them. "Did you leave your ears in the dormitory? Can't hear me speaking? Take off your mask. You kid, don't go too far." The root ninja took off his mask, his face full of anger. "What did you call me?" Akahara Kagura's eyes brightened. The other party thought for less than a second and chose not to argue with a child. "Lord Kagura, I must leave the base immediately to carry out a mission. Remember him well." Akahara Kagura pointed to Kabuto next to him and instructed, "When you are on missions, take good care of him if you meet him. I will take good care of him." This root ninja looked at Kabuto and nodded, his expression a bit gritted. Kabuto, looking at the other's expression, couldn't help but want to sigh. Although Kabuto was very grateful for Akahara Kagura's intention to take care of him, he understood that Kagura's behavior would only bring him more trouble. How could he establish himself in the root organization? Originally, he might just be bullied, but now he might be secretly assassinated. Akahara Kagura seemed not to understand this, just looking at Kabuto with joy. Kabuto, they have all promised. They will take good care of you when they meet you. You will definitely be able to survive and see the dean. Lord Kagura. Kabuto suddenly stopped, quietly looking at the seemingly naive boy, and pushed his glasses. Are you doing this on purpose? What is your real intention? What do you mean on purpose or not? What other intentions can I have? Akahara Kagura waved his hand in disgust towards Kabuto, seemingly indifferent. Do you think you can help me with anything? I just want to thank you for the help you will give me in the future. Chapter 20. Kabuto, how unfair that is. Everything Akahara Kagura says is the truth. In the memories of a past life, Akahara Kagura had a certain impression of Kabuto. In the future, Kabuto is a very useful talent. His spying ability alone is better than many others, probably only slightly less skilled than Akahara Kagura himself. Besides, Kabuto's brain is also very smart, very good at learning, and in the future, he can help with human experiments, improve various ninja forbidden jutsus, and maybe even help Akahara Kagura learn the ninja world's most mysterious immortality techniques. In short, this person is a talent. What is most needed in the ninja world? Talent. To get closer to Kabuto, Akahara Kagura made up a story out of thin air in Training Ground 9 about himself coming from an orphanage, which could barely make Kabuto feel good about him, but not enough to really trust him. The best way, of course, it is a strong bond. What is the most important thing in the ninja world? Bonds. As long as you can create a potential and strong bond with Kabuto, it would make him remember your existence, and in the future, there would be a chance to make him one of your own. However, the two actually have no connection at all. So, Akahara Kagura first talked about his own origins from the Konoha orphanage, how he misses the life there, how he misses the dean of the orphanage. All these are all false. But these falsehoods are Kabuto's true inner feelings. The one who really came from the orphanage is Kabuto. The one who really misses a life at the orphanage is also Kabuto. The one who really misses the dean of the orphanage, Kabuto, and the one who really wants to show Yakushi Nono how he's grown up is still Kabuto. Akahara Kagura tells these lies, just as a warm prelude, to make Kabuto think that there are similarities between them. Now, Akahara Kagura needs to use a tragic story to break through the warm prelude and make Kabuto believe that there is actually a bond between them. As long as there is a bond between the two, in the future, there is the possibility of Kabuto helping him. After all, Akahara Kagura doesn't know any otherworldly illusion techniques that can change the will of others, nor does he have a system ability to monitor whether the other party will be loyal to him. And he won't use a low-level and dangerous control method like embedding a curse seal in the other's vital parts. Akahara Kagura is just an employee who wants to get more and can only use some superficial methods and try to make more capable friends. Kabuto. Akahara Kagura looked at Kabuto, who was full of caution, and smiled playfully. What do you think I want you to do? I don't know yet. Kabuto furrowed his brow, pondering for a moment before replying. But I know one thing. When you met me, it shouldn't have been, as you said, happy to see someone from the same orphanage. When you first mentioned the dean's name, there was no sense of longing on your face, more like talking about someone you hadn't seen for a long time. However, I am still very happy today, because it's been a long time since someone brought up the past, because what you said on the training ground is all that I wanted to say. Maybe I've been suppressed in this organization for too long. Kabuto adjusted his glasses and whispered, I'm starting to miss the days in the orphanage more and more, and the person who treated me like a mother. As Kabuto spoke, he suddenly changed the subject. However, you don't miss the days in the orphanage, nor do you miss the dean. Is that so? Rude organizations, Kagura. Kabuto's eyes showed determination, believing in the intuition and experience his years as a spy had given him. You hate me, and you also hate the dean. You say you want to take care of me, but you made me offend other members of the rude organization, the combat ninjas I shouldn't have crossed. You don't want me to stay in the Root organization. Even, you want to use people from Root to kill me. Feeling he might have guessed some truth, Kabuto softly asked, Am I right? Lord Kagura. Clap, 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 clap. The young ninja couldn't help but clap his hands, his smile growing wider as he nodded and praised. Well said. You guessed it all. What a load of crap. He guessed it all wrong. Could it be that Kabuto never doubted the truth? Or does Kabuto think that they are not worth being deceived? Is this Kabuto really smart? Well, everything was fake in the first place. Kabuto could only guess the false results from a false direction, and it was already good to guess that he already formulated a tragic storyline. I have some trouble understanding. Kabuto looked at the young man with a hint of doubt in their eyes. You were also adopted by the dean and lived in the orphanage in the village. There shouldn't be any hatred between us. Why shouldn't there be? Akahara Kagura couldn't help but laugh cheerfully. The young man slowly spread his palms, word by word saying, Many great hatreds often stem from trivial matters, from a sudden thought in someone's mind. What do you mean? Kabuto didn't quite understand. Jealousy, one of the original sins of the world. Akahara Kagura slowly walked towards Kabuto, the smile on his face gradually turning cold. If there were no comparisons in this world, there would be no hurt, and emotions like jealousy would not arise. Jealousy? Yes, unprecedented jealousy. Akahara Kagura approached Kabuto, the young man's eyes gradually becoming fierce. Why do you have the same surname as the dean? Why does the dean always keep you in mind? Even though we are all just adopted children, even though I came first. Because Kabuto hesitated to give the answer. When I was adopted by the dean, I had forgotten all my memories, didn't remember my name or parents. So Dean gave me her surname. Kabuto remembered the woman who was as warm as a mother and continued, Dean, has she been worrying about me? Yes. She has always been worrying about you. She even forgot that there was another child who was also sent to the base of the root. Akahara Kagura slowly turned around and walked step by step towards the inside of the corridor bridge. I originally didn't want to hate her, nor did I want to hate you, and I even didn't want you to enter the root. But I saw what she had done for you, saw her inquiring about you in the root organization, but she never remembered me. She didn't know what kind of days I had here, how I was bullied here when I was a kid. Maybe she had forgotten me a long time ago. I began to slowly hate her and also despise you, who was being cared for. I realized something. The self that had embodied the will of the root developed feelings of jealousy. Even though we both entered the root, even though we are the same kind of people. Kabuto, how unfair this is.